Welcome to a special edition of Normal Ireland Live. I'm Curtis Daly, and shortly I will be joined by the Turn Left panel. Now, initially this was going to be about Keir Starmer's first year in office. It still will be, but we can't ignore the latest announcement, so we're going to be discussing that, and then we will review Labour's first year of government. Now, what is the announcement? Zara Sultana has confirmed a new political party with Jeremy Corbyn. Today, after 14 years, I'm resigning from the Labour Party. Jeremy Corbyn and I will co-lead the founding of a new party with other independent MPs, campaigners and activists across the country. Join us, the time is now. However, it seems this has already gotten off to a bumpy start, shall we say. Gabriel Pogrund, Times journalist, revealed... I think we need to get that tweet up quickly. It's frozen. Can we get up graphic 2? Brilliant, thank you. Exclusive. I understand Jeremy Corbyn has not agreed to join the new Left Party with Zara Sultana yet. He is furious and bewildered at the way it has been launched without consultation. Now, a lot of people are scratching their heads. I mean, what is going on? Now, today, Corbyn broke his silence. Real change is coming. One year on from the election, this Labour government has refused to deliver the change people expected and deserved. Poverty, inequality, and war are not inevitable. Our country needs to change direction now. Congratulations to Zara Sultana on her principled decision to leave the Labour Party. I'm delighted that she will help us build a real alternative. The democratic foundations of a new kind of political party will soon take shape. Discussions are ongoing, and I'm excited to work alongside all communities to fight for the future people deserve. Together, we can create something that is desperately missing from our broken political system: hope. So a new party will happen with Sultana and Corbyn, yet so much is in the air. I mean, what role is he going to play? He doesn't mention anything about leadership, and it was vague. This statement talked about This statement talked about a future party, but there's no name or logo. Of course, it didn't take long for the attacks, though, and I was wondering how long it would be until they were smeared as anti-Semitic. It took less than 24 hours. So we have a new anti-Zionist independent party, or Nazi party for short, explicitly here to serve foreign terrorist groups, aiming to bring Islamic extremism and Jew hate to a constituency near you. So that's right, David Collier literally compared them to the Nazis. Unbelievable. Now let's go to our panel to discuss this latest news. I do just want to say that I did promise that all 5 of us were going to be here, which clearly not. It's the 4 of us because Sarah Delau is still away. But don't worry, she will be back very, very soon. So, first of all, how is everyone doing? I mean, we've got a big show coming up, haven't we? Keir Starmer's first year, but of course, the discussion around Jeremy Corbyn. I think if we go to Lewis first. Lewis, I want to get your response to this explosive story.
Well, what's really funny as well is obviously, remember, this time last year, 4th of July, we were all sat where I am right now in my flat, in my apartment, doing the show, which is quite weird because it's been a whole year since then. Obviously, in terms of reaction to this, I find it really interesting because it again ties into the topic of even like the leadership of Labour in 1 year in, right? All of this, the mess that we're in right now, can literally be tied back to Morgan McSweeney and Keir Starmer's poor leadership. When you're the leader of a party, you have to, play with all your factions. People will say, Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana, true Labour people, and this is what Labour should be. I don't necessarily agree with that because every party's made up of factions, right? You don't necessarily want everybody to be thinking the same. And unfortunately, what's obviously happened here is that the factions have been fighting so much to the point where one got control, one has got so much power that they used it to obviously purge the left to such a point and not even placate them to a point now where people are leaving the party and wanting to do their own thing. traditionally, obviously, for decades, parties will lose for a few years. A certain faction will be subdued, and then they'll rise back up, and it'll circle back round. But now they've done so much damage that they've essentially purged the left to a point now where many of them just want to branch off and do their own thing. And all of this, again, can be tied back to Morgan McSweeney's plot to oust Jeremy Corbyn. And it's another, self-own that the Labour Party have done. And they're going to continue doing damage because they are terrible at what they do. They're terrible at running a party. And they just keep having own goals, as we've seen in this week, right? From the welfare rebellion to everything else that they keep messing up on.
Cog, what are your thoughts? I don't know if he can hear us, actually.
I can. Sorry. Sorry. I was struggling to unmute myself. I was suddenly back in Zoom in 2020. Jesus. God. So what interests me is, first of all, why now? I think there's a lot of things we don't know at the moment. What is this party going to look like? We've had hints from people like Jamie Driscoll of what it's going to look like, and it seems to be like it's going to be very community-oriented. That's all positive. But there's still a lot that we don't know, particularly about their willingness to work with other parties, which I think is going to be the key, the key to whether or not it's a success going forward and whether or not we should put support behind it. So I'm kind of interested in why it's happening at this moment, though. We know that Rachel Reeves was crying earlier in the week. There's speculation that Keir Starmer is not long for this presidency. Prime Ministership.
Premiership.
Premiership was the word I was looking for. There's speculation that is the case. Wes Streeting seems to have come out and said some very kind of critical statements of Israel in the last few days, which would suggest that maybe there is movement at the top of the Labour Party. And so they're thinking, okay, they're in chaos right now. Keir Starmer's government doesn't have long. Let's strike now. The other theory I had of why this has possibly come about now is that Mamdani in the USA is probably the biggest political figure on the left right now, and somebody that we should all be paying attention to in terms of strategy. And Mamdani, of course, raised $8 million. I'm not suggesting that money has made its way over here, but I am wondering if the energy from the Mamdani campaign has indirectly made its way to the UK, given that there are so many parallels in what you could deploy in terms of strategy with Mamdani and a strategy to address the concerns of people in the UK, right? Mamdani's strategy was based around childcare, which the care system in the UK is utterly broken. Rent, which is, most people who are privately renting right now absolutely hate it. It is extremely expensive and extremely unregulated. And transport. I think there's a lot of call for improvements in public transport and improvements in infrastructure more widely in the UK. That sort of campaign, that could have a lot of energy here. I'm curious to know, and maybe we'll never know, if the Mamdani campaign and this new group are talking to each other, or there's been some influence, maybe just inspiration. But I think there's a lot of questions to be raised here, and a lot more questions than answers.
Callum, and obviously for transparency, we need to tell people you are a Green Party member.
No, really?
You may be a little bit biased on this, but you might have the most interesting takes. We'll see. What's your response? I know you said to us you've got a couple of fears and worries, so let the audience know.
Yeah, there's 2 points. There's the fears and worries, which I'll come on to in a moment, but just to maybe try and answer Cog's question, and it is speculation, but the question as to why now. I believe the timing of this is just completely wrong, partly due to the fact that the Green Party are in the middle of a leadership campaign with a candidate who is offering an alternative on the left, in my opinion, in Zach Polanski. And I'm not convinced that now one was the right time, but I also don't think now was actually supposed to be the time. I think it's been accidental. There's been lots of conversations about this possible party with Corbyn. Corbyn's been very sort of hush hush about it, very secretive. He was even on one of the late night political shows just the other day, it may have even been yesterday, talking about this sort of, refused to say whether he would lead anything, just sort of saying, look, there's something coming, and there's space for something. I know that local independent groups up and down the country have been in conversations with Corbyn and Corbyn's team as to possible alliances or potential new parties, etc. But it's all still very much being worked out. And in fact, in Corbyn's statement that he released today, he even said that the sort of the democratic foundations will soon take shape, but they haven't taken shape yet. And I think what's happened is that because of this week that we've had in Parliament, with them pushing through on the welfare cuts, but also with the prescription of Palestine Action, which Zara Sultana very vocally stood up and spoke against in Parliament, I think that there's been some concerns from Zara's end about her potentially losing her membership of the Labour Party. She's just shown support for an organisation within Parliament during a prescription debate that, as of, I think, midnight tonight, because they lost the High Court challenge, although I think there is another one coming down the line, anyone that shows any support for this organisation could be charged under the Terrorism Act. And she stood in Parliament and declared, we are all Palestine Action. And I think that there was probably a fear from her end that they're going to try and use that against her. This is purely speculative, by the way, but they're going to try and use that to get rid of her. And I think she probably left before she was pushed. And because Corbyn's been talking about this new potential party and paving the way for it, that she then tweeted and talked about that as part of her resignation. And the reason that I think it wasn't deliberate is because we saw the tweet from the journalist from the Times, and it said that Corbyn was furious and bewildered, but also it took Corbyn until this afternoon to put a statement out. You'd think something like this would have been planned. There would have been a joint statement, that we'd have a name, we'd have a website, and we haven't got any of those things. So that's my thoughts on the why now. On the wider concerns that I have, I'm concerned it's going to split the vote. I'm concerned that I just think that when we've got Zach Polansky running to be leader of the Green Party, I just think it's completely the wrong time, because the Greens have got a foundation already. They've got over 850 councillors. They've got 8 years in a row now of growing their base and making gains year on year in elections. Reform, by the way, have just had 2 defences at a council elections, and they lost both of them in by-elections. They lost both the seats that they'd only got a month or so ago. And there's a lot of groundwork that needs to go into building a political party, and that groundwork already exists within the Green Party. And my worry is that Corbyn sat on his arse for the last 5 years, and a lot of people that were socialists, that were pro-Corbyn, have turned to the Green Party and are getting behind Zach. And I worry that, one, some of those members might leave the Green Party and go to this other party, which will take resources away from a party that's currently got a lot of momentum to it, but also that it will lead to a vote split. And the way around it, of course, will involve some form of electoral pact or some form of coalition or agreement. But the only way that's going to happen within the Green Party is if the Green Party membership vote for it. Zach Polansky can say all he wants that anyone that doesn't like reform is a friend of ours or whatever. I'm paraphrasing, but unless the membership supports some form of agreement and coalition and electoral pact, it's not going to happen.
Speaking of that, I want to read out one of Zach Polansky's tweets. Quite encouraging, right? And I think you'll probably agree with that, Callum. So this is in response to Zara Sultana's statement. Zach Polansky said, "Anyone who wants to take on the Tories, Reform and this failing Labour government is a friend of mine. Looking forward to seeing what it looks like in practice." So basically, he's signalling there that he'd be willing to work with whatever this party is. Now, if you watch Novara tonight, Michael Walker spoke to Jamie Driscoll, and I thought it was really informative, because the question was obviously put to Jamie Driscoll, like, are you going to work with other parties, the Greens, independents, or is this going to be some big sort of national party? And the answer from Jamie Driscoll was basically, we are going to work with good people. I don't think right now that this new party is going to be some sort of big national party that's going to split the vote. I think it sounds like to me, it's going to be some sort of targeted area where in my opinion, there are certain seats where the Greens should not stand, and there's certain seats where maybe this new party shouldn't stand. Like around the Bristol area, obviously I'm from Bristol, and that place went to Carladenia, which was a fantastic result. But places like Starmer seat, where Andrew Feinstein came second, and I was astonished by that. I've since that result, I've since called for the Greens to stand down. Jeremy Corbyn's seat and Liam Mohammed's seat, and there's probably a few other independents. We could see some actually quite inciting here, because my personal view, and more than welcome to disagree, I don't think right now there is a left-wing majority in this country. I don't think a left-wing party can win a majority. Of course, social democratic parties have won. The Labour Party has won with socialists inside it, but the Labour Party's never won with a socialist at the helm. And that doesn't mean I don't think they can win, by the way, because obviously what we saw with Jeremy Corbyn. But even when Jeremy Corbyn was leader, it wasn't a left-wing party. It's a social democratic party. Do I think a left-wing socialist party can win a majority? Right now, no. And I don't think the left's goal should be, let's try and build a party and win a majority. What we really need to be looking at is we need to be getting as much seats as possible in certain areas. The Greens need to be targeting maybe 40 seats. There are areas where the Greens their brands might not be able to touch certain places where Jeremy Corbyn's base of support can. And we sort of have like a UK version of a new popular front, a big coalition. That is actually something quite exciting. But it can come with its downsides. I do sympathise with the fact that, why now? I mean, for me, I think the best time to do it was when Jeremy Corbyn was kicked out of the party. He could have used that leverage and momentum to fight the next general election to contest 10 seats.
That's what I mean when I say he sat on his arse, by the way. He's done some fantastic work both for his constituents and for extremely important issues over the last 5 years. Like, I'm not trying to... I've got a lot of admiration and support for Jeremy Corbyn. I wasn't trying to downplay that. But... Why didn't they come forward then and say, well, you know what? If Labour don't want us, fuck it. We're gonna form something new. We're gonna create a space for, because actually, I think that what we're seeing happen now within the Green Party is that people are using the Green Party as the platform to do that because that void hasn't been filled. It should have been done 4 years ago.
But I'll bring the others in a second. There's no point now looking at that and going, well, it should have happened. I mean, we are where we are now.
Yeah.
And some people could see that, look, there's a potential ceiling for the Green Party as well, I mean, it has the name Green. It doesn't scream to me as a working class majority party, even though the policies I agree with and, I voted for the Greens. It doesn't sound like a mass party. Whereas this new thing with Corbyn could be. So there's potential ceilings there. Lewis or Cog, whoever wants to go up next, I mean, what's your response to that sort of discussion there?
In terms of the timing of all of this, I'm not actually against it. I think that the only way to kind of hopefully maybe whip Labour back towards the left is by putting this absolute threat in front of their face. Not saying that, therefore, this is just going to be a big plan to make the Labour Party back to what it was. But now that we're seeing the votes seeping to other parties from the left, and this party could potentially engage a lot of those voters. And obviously, as well, we can't forget that the amount of people who didn't vote in this election versus the last election where Corbyn was at the head of it in 2017, we've literally got like 6, 7, 8 million voters who didn't turn out. Who also could be activated. Ultimately, I would obviously hope that this wouldn't lead to a vote split, which would allow Reform to come into power. But what I could hope is that it could eventually lead to a larger left-wing alliance where the left has more power in this country, where they can leverage that power to get some of the things that they want. I don't predict that Keir Starmer will be the leader at the next election, and perhaps somebody who is more amenable will be willing to create and help create a big coalition of the left, because that is going to be the only way to stop somebody like Nigel Farage coming in. This is what France did, right? This is what Germany did. Germany's got that agreement that they don't have any coalitions with the AfD. When it came to stopping, I forget the name, Marianne Le Pen's party, the National Front, essentially in France, all the parties worked together to make sure that they didn't come in. And I hope that we could see that movement. But ultimately, we're stuck in a system where we would have won almost every single election since World War II as lefties if it wasn't for first past the post. Now, if they want to truly leverage the power that they could create if this movement is successful, I think that power should be pushing to a more PR system. And the reason why I'm saying that is that the Labour Party still will remain and probably will remain in the future, and I'm using this word loosely because they're not currently in this position, but the strongest left-leaning party in terms of the traditional spectrum in the UK. And if they still want to remain on top, if they move to a PR system, they would. At their current stance, if there was an election right now, they would get decimated under first past the post. And I feel like if they think their survival is up for at risk, then the only way to save themselves would be to move to a PR system. I know this sounds, maybe too unrealistic or too hopeful, but I feel like a coalition between Green, Lib Dem, this new party, whatever it might be, and whoever else can push for a coalition with the condition of we want PR. And I think that really, really could work because it will rebalance the scales for the future of this country and not just in the short term beating reform once off because they're just going to keep coming back.
Can I just ask you on that, Lewis? Because I noticed the other day I saw somebody had put something out about this where they'd actually looked at the figures. It might have even been Harry, I think it could have been Champagne Socialist that put it out, who said that there's actually room, if you look at the figures, for, all right, say Reform get 27% of the vote share, but actually with all the other votes going everywhere else, it's going to be so much, because if there's a hung parliament, Reform wouldn't be able to form a government on their own. They're going to need support. But it's more likely that Labour would have other parties that would support them in coalition, or the Liberal Democrats, than it is Reform would. So, I mean, having seen, I know you keep an eye on the polls, having sort of looked at the figures recently, how likely do you think it is that we could be in a situation where we have a hung parliament and we see that kind of rainbow coalition?
It's way too hard to predict where we're going to be in 4 years. But what I can say is just remember with the polls, the biggest voter is don't know. And that box keeps getting bigger, but it's not shown on most of the headlines. The Reform, I don't want to underestimate them because we shouldn't, but Reform aren't as ahead as everybody thinks. They consistently don't deliver on the amount of votes that they should get in proportion to how they've polled over the last year, including the 4th of July election last year. We need to remember we don't know how people will behave when there's an actual election. We don't know who's going to turn out.
Oh, just on that, sorry to interrupt you, but I see Stats for Lefties have just actually posted just this second with a poll from Survation that actually only has Reform leading 1% ahead now, and a lot of constituencies like Whitehaven and Workington, for example, where I grew up, that on the last polls was showing as Reform is now showing as Labour again. Reform on 27%, Labour on 26%, Cons on 19%, Lib Dems on 12%, and the Greens on 8%. I know, obviously, different polls show different things, but it's interesting that even now, Labour is sort of it's back and forth, isn't it, between Labour and Reform?
So obviously, again, we'll have to see what happens. But again, it's really hard to predict what's going to happen in a few years' time because we don't know who the Conservative leader is going to be. We don't know if Farage is going to implode. We just simply don't know.
Cog.
Spontaneously combust.
Cog.
Yeah.
Lewis says that the timing of this isn't so bad, actually. And I think it's a really interesting take, by the way. I think Callum's more on the side of why now.
Callum says it's awful timing.
I need to say it's awful timing, be like, I'm not sure why. Cog, what's your view on that? And also got another question. Sure. We'll open it up as well. And it kind of addresses what Callum was saying about this sort of fumbling of the announcement. It wasn't really an announcement, though, was it? Aaron Bastani kind of has some sort of inside information, right? And he basically said that how this sort of formation of the party went about is that there was a vote, right? There was an internal vote, and then the result of that vote was there's going to be a co-leadership with presumably Zara Sultana and Jeremy Corbyn, right? And apparently there were independent MPs, former staffers to Corbyn, who weren't happy with that. And apparently, I don't know if it's one of them or something's happened, someone has briefed to the Times against Zara Sultana. So I do think that Gabriel article or quote is real. So first of all, is timing good or bad? Does it really matter? And second of all, are we going to see kind of similar to what we had in the Labour Party with we got some potential backstabbers in there? Because I'm fucking over that, by the way. But
Yeah. So with regards to potential backstabbing, the media are going to paint you as a Stalinist, irrespective if you're on the left. You might as well be very harsh on internal rebellion. And if somebody briefs against the party in the press, if they're appearing on, I don't know, Good Morning Britain and going, Corbyn is doing this, da 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 da, don't support him, da 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 da, and they're supposed to be part of the coalition, they should immediately be just suspended, kicked out, distanced from, and potentially briefed against themselves. Saying like, "Hey, this person was all agreeing with us, and then came on the news and was and was suddenly briefing against us." We should be very honest about that and be ready to show from a position of strength. And I think showing strength is one of the things that the left needs to do right now. We need positions of strength. We need consistency to be a core leftist principle, not just consistency with our principles, though that is important, but consistency in terms of getting people out and campaigning as well. Mamdani, sorry to keep going back to Mamdani, but Mamdani was polling at 10% when he began his campaign. It may even have been lower than that to begin with, but he was polling at 10% for ages. Do not believe the polls. If you push through, you will be successful. If you have the right strategy, you will be successful. And strategy really is one of the areas that we should be paying attention to. To borrow a couple of ideas from Sun Tzu, like he says at one point in The Art of War, if you know yourself and know your enemy, you need not fear 1,000 battles. Now, in the case of the battles that we're talking about, that means knowing what issues people are concerned about, what issues are people concerned about, and you can be like pro trans, pro LGBT, you can be pro immigration, but the thing that you need to get right, the thing that needs to be at the center of your campaign is cost of living and class issues. If you do not have these at the center of your campaign, then you are weak on the other issues because your commitment to class gives you something where you go, okay, this is somebody who genuinely speaks for me. I think that is a core part of that of keeping yourself safe from attacks. For example, Bernie Sanders. Nobody ever asks Bernie Sanders in the media about being in favor of transgender rights. Like he doesn't get questioned on it, and people don't obsess over it because he's not the kind of politician to sort of take the weak kind of like, well, yeah, we support them. Oh, sorry, what does the polling say? Yeah, we support them about 20% because that's what the public seem to support. No, you take your principles, you stick to those principles, and that is how you win. You fight, and you fight again. And the left needs to come at everything from a position of fight, but also know when its opponent is weak. And I think this perhaps could be an answer to why Corbyn is doing this now. I kind of disagree with the characterization of sitting on his hands. I actually think that to borrow, I'll paraphrase this again from Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu talks a lot about the idea of you avoid your enemy where he's strong, you attack him where he's weak, you seek division between sovereign and subject, right? You look for when their coalition starts to break, and that is when you go in and attack. And I think that is exactly what has happened in the past sort of like month or so, is the McSweeney coalition has really started to fall apart, and McSweeney's strategy is just not popular among anybody. Like even the centrists aren't really defending it anymore. They'll attack Corbyn and they'll attack the left, but they can't really defend their own positions on these things.
I mean, speaking of attacks, right, and this is the one worrying thing. I mean, there's many worries, right, but this is my main worry about a new political party under Jeremy Corbyn or whatever. It's not to do with splitting the left vote or the Greens. I'm actually not that concerned about that. Or, however, I don't really have a strong position either way. I care about results. So, like, if it works that there's two left-wing parties, then I'm for it. If it means it's bad, then I'm not, and electorally it's bad, then I'm not for it. So that's why I'm not really speculating too much on like electorally what this means.
So if your team are winning, you're in favour, but if they're losing, then...
Well, I mean, like, in terms of strategy, right? If it means that, like, basically they take all the Green votes and then this new party can only appeal somewhere, whereas the Greens can appeal more broadly, then I'm like, well, that's obviously a bad strategy, right? Like, I'm not going to be like, I think this is good or bad, because I just don't know. But my big worry is this. and it's about attacking, and it's about appearing strong. Now, Jeremy Corbyn is too much of a good man, right? When he became leader of the Labour Party, he said this: "I don't do personal. All right, I'm going to speak about what I believe in. I'm going to speak about policies. I'm going to rise above it." Fantastic. We all like that, in terms of, I don't know, it feels kind of nice. And you think, oh, what a gentleman. We are not in that era now. And we need someone who is aggressive and comes out swinging. The reason why I say that is because I think this era of politics is largely you are defined by your opponent, and you need to define your opponent. Now, if Jeremy Corbyn, say he is the leader or co-leader, and basically just tries to talk about policies, and then attacks, which inevitably are going to start coming in. I mean, David Collier already called this the Nazi Party, so it's already happening. Jeremy Corbyn is going to do exactly what he did when he was Labour leader. He's going to spend 60 to 70% of the time trying to refute, trying to bat away these attacks. And guess what? What gets talked about? The attacks. So this is what I think this new party needs to do. And I don't know if Jeremy Corbyn has that killer instinct, right? You need to come out and be fucking aggressive. You need to be nasty. And yeah, maybe even smear them. And I don't mean like lie about people, but make other people look bad. And the reason why they say that, right, is because look at what Reform's doing. Reform is coming out swinging. All you hear in the media is Reform attacks Labour on X. Reform attacks Labour on Y. And whether it's true or not, and whether it's fair or not, the story is Reform have created this narrative and Labour need to defend themselves. So even if you're in the right, people don't particularly care whether you're right or wrong, but what the media basically says and the narrative is, if we're going to have Reform, Labour attacks Jeremy Corbyn's new party on X as terrorist sympathisers, what goes through people's minds? Terrorist sympathiser, Jeremy Corbyn's new party. That's where people connect the dots. So if Jeremy Corbyn and this new party comes out and starts being aggressive, starts saying, fuck the Reform Party, they're a bunch of billionaires. They're linked to Elon Musk, Donald Trump. I mean, Nigel Farage recently came out and said he wasn't even supportive of gay marriage. They've taken billions of pounds from these disgusting people, and they're Zionists and they support Israel. Then the conversation is going to be Jeremy Corbyn accuses Farage of this. Same with the Labour Party. So I think that has to be done. And I don't know whether Jeremy Corbyn has that within him. So I'm thinking, does Jeremy Corbyn need to be the figurehead? Or does he need to be the man that, like, sort of the organising guy that drives it? And that possibly could be what it is. It could be sort of a transition. And my final point on this, before I let someone else in, is... I'll go to someone else first. So I've actually forgot that point. I hadn't heard from Lewis actually. Well, what's your response to that?
No, I agree. Like Jeremy and Zara all have really good qualities, but I don't think either of them has the full package. Right? We can say confidently that who they are and what they stand for is everything that we need. But ultimately, you do need that person, that leader, to get people across the line. And I don't think on that front either of them are the full package. Zara has the aggression. I don't think she has the delivery. I think Corbyn doesn't have the aggression, but sometimes has the delivery. And it's not just necessarily about having a figurehead, because you don't just want a figurehead, but you do need somebody with the whole package. And it is asking that question, who is that person? And obviously, in terms of the potential idea of the other independents joining in, if they want to be serious about creating a true left-wing alternative, they need to start a party from principle and not just opposition. Some of these independent MPs have voted for things which aren't left-wing. I think you mentioned yesterday one of them previously voted against putting VAT on private schools. Maybe there's another reason behind that that they could argue for, perhaps. But they need to make sure that if they're going to go ahead with this, that it's not obviously just about them. And I know they wouldn't do that purposefully, but they need to use their platform to make sure they're raising up other people for future leaders. Zara's still got a lot to learn, I think, and I think she has the potential to be that. She's got the reputation, she's got the following, she's the most popular left-wing MP on social media. She's technically more popular on paper and on the data than Jeremy Corbyn, but they ultimately need to make sure that they're building a party that is consistent with the values and not just from opposition, because that will harm them and that will come and bite them in their arse. Because some of these independent MPs, they did obviously, and morally very good and very courageous of them as a pro Gaza kind of protest vote, And some of these people aren't left wing. I'm not saying they're right wing. They're just not ideologically
Not
in the same
socialists.
space as. Yeah, they're not in the same space as Zara and Corbyn. So they need to make sure whatever they do, that they do need to. People say Keir Starmer's ruthless behind the scenes. They need a bit of ruthlessness. If one of these independent MPs are not ideal, Corbyn's a nice guy, but he needs to be like, you're not for us if they want to do this, because that will hurt them further down the line. Because I make a lot of content about Gaza, Palestine, and I try and make sure that every time I do the show, I do a story on it. But their personality can't just be that as well, and they risk having that as their personality if they just let any one of these pro-Gaza MPs come in. They need to be socialist, they need to be left-wing, and they need to have more of an identity than the pro-Gaza stance.
And actually, that point's a really important one, because you're already seeing people within the Labour Party. There's been tweets of good riddance and about time and all this for Zara Sultana announcing a resignation, but many of them are already not necessarily Labour MPs, but other sort of supporters and enemies as well, to use the term, are accusing them of only caring about global affairs, being an Islamist party that only care about Palestine and sympathizing with terrorists. And even though it's a smear, and even though we know it's not true, if they focus too much of the time and the energy on that single issue, it's going to work against them, because it gives the people on the right and it gives the media an opportunity to say, see, they're just Hamas supporters. Whereas actually, if they come out with a full policy idea around the need for social homes and nationalisation and and all the things that Corbyn has been so good at campaigning for in the past, I think it will be easy, in the same way that the Greens need to get that message out there, because even though they're not just about the environment, that's still what a lot of people think they're just about. I think they're going to have to have that same battle, and if they're not successful with that, then I think it could work against them.
Do you know what's really interesting? And this is in contrast with this new party in the Greens, right? And it's a plus and minus. The plus side is, already this new party has been spoken about a lot, and there was an entire segment on GB News. Now, GB News doesn't cover the Green Party. I mean, the mainstream media doesn't really cover the Green Party, right? But GB News doesn't talk about the Greens, yet they've done an entire panel on this new party. Jeremy Corbyn's party will absolutely get more media attention than the Greens, which is a plus, that there is this other left-wing party that can work with the Greens that can get more media attention. The negative here, though, is this party, and we've already seen it, is far more open to attacks that the Greens don't. I mean, really, the Greens haven't been attacked. I mean, they get accused of being sort of a student party or student politics, because I think they're seen as non-threatening and sort of the nice party, whereas against Jeremy Corbyn and his sort of faction of politicians are called Hamas terrorists. So the Greens do have this kind of shield against them that they're not attacked very much, which Jeremy Corbyn is, which is a worry. But obviously, I think maybe we can all agree here. Potentially, you can sort of turn that into a weapon, because you're getting spoken about. I wanna get your thoughts on that, Cock. Can this new party catapult left-wing politics into the narrative, into the mainstream media and the wider discussion? Could we potentially have a scenario where the Tories are already gone, they're fucked, Labour's going to die, and you do genuinely have a proper left-wing, right-wing rivalry? You've got Reform, but you've got the socialist left-wing party fighting against Reform. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that it could well be the case. There was a post on Blue Sky from John Rentoul saying that he's, John Rentoul is a Blairite, and he was saying that most Labour members see Farage as their party's biggest threat, and most members think Labour should move to the left, and he's put hashtag head desk. Right, he thinks that's a contradiction, because he doesn't understand.
He's stupid and he's a Blairite.
Yes, because the lessons that the Blairites
Blairite
have
and stupid usually go together, by the way.
The lessons that Blairites have learned from watching their opponents win is that they need to copy their opponents exactly, right? They need to become Reform light. It's like Ed Sheeran watching Taylor Swift having massive success, in her tours, and then going, you know what? Maybe I should sing "Shake It Off." And it's like, no, you are not understanding. There is an audience that size that will come out for you, Ed, but it's not the audience that want to listen to "Shake It Off." It's the audience, and there will be crossover between that audience. It's important to understand Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran's audience are not exclusive, and the right and the left, the voters are not exclusive. People will come out for politicians who actually believe in something, in fucking anything. If people if the people who are making the arguments on television are genuinely fighting for what they believe in, that people see that fight in them, people will turn out for them. It is as simple as that. But I did say there are things that can be learned from UKIP that this new party need to do. For example, I said, argue for your positions strongly and unapologetically. Do not try and just go where the polling leads. Argue for your positions. You will come across as more genuine. Make noise all the time. Always be making noise so that you start to direct narratives. You were touching on this earlier, Curtis. Good advice. Like, it is sound advice, and Reform does it all the time. Every time a migrant sneezes in Dover, Nigel Farage is on the TV going, we're having a press briefing about the migration crisis, right? Thirdly, and I think this is maybe one of the most important ones, seek new media exposure. If the politicians in this new party each have two, it would only take two staffers who are well versed in social media, who can edit and who have good sound, good equipment, they can get their message across to a whole range of audiences that regular politicians, that status quo politicians do not have access to, because people don't get their information from BBC News, ITV News, Channel 4, like the standard sort of like places that people used to go for their media is not where people are going. It's to a large degree online right now. And of course, that one of the most important things, reject the status quo. We are in the era of populism. If you try to support the status quo, you are going to fuck up. That is what it's going to be. One of the things that the Mamdani campaign has done so well, and I know I keep going on about it, but it is the best politically fought campaign that I have seen in the past 10 years, right? The Mamdani campaign, because there is the status quo, it's forced everybody on the right of American politics, from Donald Trump to the right of the Democrat Party, to be defending the status quo. You want your opponent to defend the status quo, because nobody likes the status quo, and it instinctually rubs people up the wrong way if you are out there defending the status quo. So you want to be always against the status quo. You want to be truly populist and saying, enough of this, it's time for actual change and identifying the villains who are currently running the system, right?
Cog, that is fire, right? I love that. I personally think you've hit the nail on the head there. Can someone clip that, please? Because that was fantastic. We are coming up to the sort of halfway point of the show, so I do want to pivot to our second part. But before we do that, we've got some comments. So I think we can probably have like a 5-minute round off of this discussion, because this isn't going to go away. This is first of many discussions. So I thought if we brought up some comments, and then we can sort of round off that story, and then we'll get to the Keir Starmer's first year of Labour government review.
Do we have to? I know it's the point of the show tonight, but do we have to talk?
I know you really want to talk about this. I do too.
It's not that. I just don't want to talk about how bad the last 12 months have been. That's all.
Lana Pierce, the mainstream media barely mentioned the Greens. The new parties all over the mainstream media today. That basically spoke to what I was saying, that like even GB News. I'm not saying like, the goal was to get on GB News, but I want people on the right to see what Jeremy Corbyn has to say. That is a good point, right? I do think the problem though with Corbyn, which is also why some people in the chat were saying, and I've had this conversation with people over the last 24 hours about, why didn't Corbyn join the Greens? I think Corbyn comes with a lot of baggage because of what happened when he was leader of the opposition, and even though a lot of that wasn't true, and it was a deliberate smear. But then Zach Polansky's being called a self-hating Jew, which is obviously disgusting. So like, in terms of that,
it's harder
I don't
to
think
land
that
it. It's harder to land it though when the person that's saying the things is Jewish, right?
it doesn't stop them, though, does it? And I
No, it
think
doesn't
like
stop them, but from a more public perspective, it's easy to point at a Muslim woman and say, oh well, she's an anti-Semite.
Yeah, but then
it's much harder to point at a
I
Jewish
hear
man
what you're
and
saying
claim
on
he
that, but
is.
the way to counter that is Zach Polanski puts his arm around Jeremy Corbyn and says, look, he's now a member of the Green Party. I'm a Jewish man. Jeremy Corbyn is fantastic. Then people could be like, that same sort of deflection was like, he's Jewish, he's just endorsed me. I don't think like people should ever worry. I mean, it's not going to happen now, but people shouldn't worry about this sort of baggage Jeremy Corbyn has joining the Green Party. The establishment is going to attack, aren't they?
No, but I think that same baggage will follow him into this new party as well. And but I partly think that's why it seems like they're lining Zara Sultana up almost to replace him, because she doesn't come with the same level of baggage from the media that he does. The reason that they're talking about him is because it's Jeremy Corbyn. When he was leader of the opposition, Labour probably got more coverage in the press than the government of the time did. In fact, they did, and it was all negative media, and it contributed to the biggest loss for the Labour Party in Labour's history.
Becca A, why when the Greens have a co-leader, it's weak and confusing, yet when it's the Jumbly Sultana Crumble Party? I mean, to be fair though, I don't like co-leadership anyway, and I'm not liking this potential new party as a co-leadership. I really, really do not like that. For me, the same reasons why I have a problem with the Greens. And it was quite funny actually, as Jamie Driscoll said to Michael Walker earlier. Jamie was like, we need to stop having charismatic leaders in a party that forms around them, and we need more community. But then Michael, and I actually agree with Michael on this point, he goes, the problem is we have a lack of charismatic people who would have a party built around them. I would love to have a more cooperative party, right? But in this day and age, in the attention economy, I feel like what's needed is like a charismatic single leader. I don't know what you guys think about that.
It is worth just saying that Zara's statement last night didn't say she would be the co-leader of a party. It said Jeremy Corbyn and I will co-lead the founding of a new party. So to me, that sounds more like the two of them together are going to create this new party, and then it'll evolve from there, rather than her being a co-leader of the party, the co-leading the founding of the party.
Yeah. What do you, Lewis and Cog, your thoughts on that?
That was the same as Corbyn's letter as well that he published. It was about building the foundations as well. So
I mean, it was a bit of a mismatch in those statements, though. Like
it was,
it felt like Zara was a bit more direct, whereas his was a bit more like.
Well, the way I described it earlier to somebody was like it felt like Zara was just basically saying "Let's go," and Corbyn is still like packing his bags and checking the windows are shut before he goes on holiday. Right? That's kind of I think representative of their personalities in lots of ways. Obviously, I hope they do a fantastic job with this, with the co-leader thing as well. Like, I completely agree with you, and you've been consistent on this. I don't agree with the co-leader thing. I do think it's helpful when you have that person at the top who is the one single leader with obviously a great base of democratic foundation in the party, and that's going to be the best way moving forward. I feel like it has hurt the Greens by having the co-leader thing. I feel like Caroline Lucas's status was obviously bolstered by the fact that she was the leader and was the only leader at the time. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes.
Cal? I'm correct. Just double checking. And I don't like the co-leader thing, so I hope they build it together, but ultimately somebody comes out on top, and how that happens, I'm sure they will figure it out.
I'm not gigantically keen on the co-leader thing. However, the more important question for me is how they build online parasocial relationships with audiences, because I think that's going to be the thing that gets people door knocking. That's going to be the thing that gets people out when there's like a Zara Sultana is coming to Great Yarmouth. There should be a rush of sort of like, okay, she's coming to Great Yarmouth. I've been watching her videos every single day, because Zara Sultana has had well cut together videos that not only show what policies she's after, not only show that she's about policies that will help working class people and will address the real core needs of people in this country, the bread and butter issues, but also put across Zara Sultana as a person, Zara Sultana when she's having those laughy, jokey moments, the behind the scenes Zara Sultana, all of that needs to come across to create a parasocial relationship. That way, it doesn't matter too much if you've got one charismatic leader, because you can have multiple people who are charismatic in their own ways, because there's so much more personality out there. If there's personality out there, it's so much more powerful. It's so much more powerful. And it's one of the criticisms that I have of Adrian Ramsey and Carla Denya as leaders of the Greens, that I think in a lot of ways they've done really quite well. However, they haven't weaponized social media as much as they should have done. And also weaponized parasocial relationships. I've seen a bit of it from Carla Denya, but we need to see not a bit of it. We need to see tons of it. We need to see abundant amounts of it, so much that you're sick of seeing her face on your screen, because then you get to know them on a parasocial level.
I don't want to give Lewis all the credit for this, but after a Turn Left's interview with Carla and conversations that Lewis had with her both on and off camera, I definitely noticed an improvement in Carla's social media output. So thanks for that one, Lewis.
Yeah, thanks, Lewis.
No, well, she deserves the attention as well. She's just, I just think she's got a lot more potential, and they weren't really tapping into it. And the one thing as well is, it's an off comment. It's just my own bias as well, because I really like the way this person delivers. But if Zara Sultana took her aggression, which she's got, but had the delivery of someone like Ash Sarkar, she'd be unstoppable. Because Ash Sarkar is so good at like changing her delivery depending on her audience. Like the way she acts on her own podcast. So she's got her own separate podcast with one of the co-hosts of Navara. It's like a women's podcasting. I can't remember the name of it. And then she's obviously got her Navara personality.
Can I speak,
and then she's
I think
got her.
it's called. Her is Sash and Moya.
I don't listen to her. I just watch the clips on TikTok. And then, she has a different approach for when she goes on not GB News, but other channels, and then on the BBC and on Question Time. She knows how to deliver and who to deliver to. Whereas Zara, she has like the same personality, I think, in Parliament, on TV, and wherever else she is. I feel like if she just improved in the way she delivers her message, I think she'd be unstoppable.
I want to show this from Specs Bean Farmer. Cog, you're not allowed to be this correct and this attractive at once. Please pick one.
Thanks, Specs. Appreciate it.
We've got a fan. I'll tell you what, though.
I didn't pay Specs to say that, by the way.
Well, we'll check the accounts.
Yeah,
so far, it seems like Cog's the MVP for tonight, which is...
We got some super chat questions as well.
Yes.
Okay, I'll get to those too, but I want to show this as well, because since Cog is the MVP, I'm glad no one's dunking on lovely cows there. I like how everyone gets bashed equally in the chat. That is, I quite enjoy that. Like there will be like a criticism of one of us in each show, and I'm actually quite here for that. So
listen, if we were all the same and we all had exactly the same views, it'd be boring, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it'd be very.
This one from I'll let someone else do the super.
By the way,
chat,
can I just point out that Callum's wearing green?
I always wear green. I like it. It's a nice colour.
Do you mind if I
I got two comments, and then I'm gonna do the super chats. But Cog, you want to quickly say something?
Sorry, yeah, I was going to say something I forgot to say. As well as having somebody with their social media, they should have a couple of people just to like do their social media who are professional editors, who know how to get ideas across, who are meme specialists, because that's really important if you're creating videos for like TikTok and stuff. You also, by the way, need quality, and this is something that I've learned from Curtis. Curtis should get the credit for this, because having high quality output makes a huge difference to how many people are willing to listen to you. Enough with politicians doing media appearances where they don't have proper lighting on them, where they don't have a proper webcam,
microphone,
where they're doing it from their phone and the view is just like them looking down at their phone. No, enough. They need to be able to be properly.
I have got a playlist of all the Labour MPs. I've got a playlist of all the Labour MPs on TikTok that I've come across and just saved them into a playlist so I can just keep an eye on them. And the quality of their content is horrific. And it's funny
I've got to say though,
because it is like millennials doing it, but it's obviously like millennials who just aren't like in tune with like social media.
Labour students. Labour students
it's not just Labour. It's not just Labour.
A young person who ain't got a fucking clue.
Both Ellie and Adrian had posted videos on their social media in the last 24 hours, and it was like this. They were outside Parliament, and it was like so we're doing a really important video, and we've got the sun shining right down the camera lens, and I was just like, turn the other way, please.
I just want to bring up this though. This is from Vicky Clee, and fucking hell, what a shout! What a shout! Jamie Driscoll will be a good leader. I think that is such a good shout, especially watching him again on Navara, because I've not seen him for a while, and he's on there, and he's straight talking. Right, he's confident. He's got that sort of like likable sort of charisma about him. I think he would be a brilliant fucking leader. But I feel like someone's already taken his place because Andrew has said, guys, I'm the real leader. I just can't keep it secret anymore. So it turns out that that job has been taken. If someone wants to go through the super chats as well.
Can we get you on for an exclusive interview then, please?
Yeah, what are your
Yeah,
policies there, Andrew?
What's the name of the party?
That's the name of the party. That's a good fucking question, yeah.
So my pal Foot gave us a lovely £5. Thank you so much, and said, "So
Thank
how
you.
does this new party avoid saying what's popular but make popular what needs to be said?"
It's a good question.
Do we want to address that, or do we want
With great difficulty.
I think repetition. Keep saying it. Look, when it comes to migration, in 1 year, we've gone from, and I'm not saying this endpoint is quite the mainstream yet, but I can see it happening. In 1 year, we've gone from politicians going, we just need to look at illegal immigration, right? Legal migration's absolutely fine. It's just illegal immigration. Of course, we ain't stupid. That's always a sort of an entry sort of level or entry point to like, oh, how can we attack immigration more widely? But that's their entry point because that's all they can get away with. We've gone from that to people talking about remigration. So we've gone from, oh, we're only concerned about illegal migration to a literal ethno-state. And why has that happened? Because right-wing parties and right-wing media has non-stopped talked about migration and also trying to push the envelope. And as they do that, so-called progressive parties like Labour and stuff have followed that trail. Now they're saying, well, we got to tackle illegal migration because the right-wing parties are doing it. So I think how to make something popular, you fucking keep banging about it. You do not shut up about it. You keep going and going and going and going and going until people go, okay, the media, maybe we should address this. I think that's what it is. I could be completely wrong. I'm not a political strategist. I'm just a commentator. I don't know what you think about that.
I think when it comes to obviously even like certain issues as well, people really need to practice on the best way to sometimes approach things. Like when it comes to immigration, right? Let's just put like legal immigration in this category and put illegal immigration to the side, or irregular immigration, should I say? Is that when it comes to too many people coming into this country, it should just be the left wing thing should just be not even focused on the conversation of immigration. It should just be about uplifting people in this country, right? And you can even throw in little tad bits there, right? We're creating such a demand in the West for medical staff that we're affecting other countries. All the policy should be focused on uplifting people in this country so we don't have to rely on immigration without demonizing immigration, because that is the truth of where we're at right now. We have to rely on it because we failed to uplift people in the society, in society, to train people, to keep people in jobs, to incentivize them and want them to stay and give them progress and make it easier for them. I recently lost my job in November, and I was considering, because people said I'd be good at this, I was thinking maybe I want to become a paramedic, maybe. And when I was looking into it, it was so hard. And it's like there is a mass shortage of paramedics right now. Why is the government not making it really easy for somebody like me who's just come out of a job, who I'm pretty good in those types of situations?
You'll be really good as a paramedic, to be fair.
Oh, thank you very much. And why is it not easy that I can't apply for that quite easily and quickly and get everything that I need to become paramedic? Because the government really needs one. And that should be the focus when it comes to the talk of immigration, making sure that we don't need to rely on immigration to keep this country going so we can uplift people in this country. That needs to be the conversations, taking control of it, essentially.
Cog, your last thoughts on that, unless there's more super chats?
There are more super chats, 2 more at least to come in. Yeah, so I think I agree with essentially what's been said so far. You do need strong messaging. You need to come out with that strong messaging. You need to come out fighting, and you need to do not give up, but also focus on those bread and butter issues. If you do not focus on those bread and butter issues, you will not get people won over. And that means the things that make a real difference in real people's lives. What are people concerned about? I can't pay my rent. I can't afford my shopping. Those should be the center of your campaign, those 2 things. Just straight away, every campaign should be can't afford rent, can't afford shopping, plus, 2 or 3 issues that are particular to that local community. There's going to be things in each community that they feel needs improving, and Jamie Driscoll did say earlier that a lot of this should be community led, and trying to get an idea from that community about what that community wants. Perhaps this new group is going to be more successful just given their base of support in big cities, and the Greens are going to continue to be more successful in rural areas where, like, Labour and left-wing parties traditionally don't have a stronger hold. But that kind of remains to be seen. It'll be about driving forward messages, basically.
Welcome to the show, Kevin Logan viewers. It is the Kevolution. So I'm glad to see you guys in there. Welcome. I believe we've got 2 more super chats, and then we're going to move on to the next segment. What do we have?
3. Another one's just coming.
Sure. Do you want me to read them out? So, Tic Tac Music says, and I think this is brilliant, any left movement without Eric Adams is a farce. I agree.
True.
I agree. Nobody. We shouldn't be moving forward unless we're with Trump-endorsed Eric Adams. It is interesting what I said earlier about Mandani, and because he defines himself against the status quo, people are always having to defend the status quo. Even Donald Trump is coming forward and defending a very corrupt, by the way, and Trump-supporting Eric Adams, who's supposed to be a Democrat. Border Prince says, another strong left-wing party cannot be a bad thing. Hopefully they will take the fight to reform. Turn left.
Sorry, bring that up again. I completely missed that.
So another strong left-wing party cannot be a bad thing. Hopefully they will take the fight to reform. Turn left. I think I agree with that.
Well, do you know what? Someone else put, like, what should the new party be called? I was like, turn left? No, that's our name. Yes, I want to see a stronger left to take the fight and reform, because at the moment...
God, sorry, we just had 2 more super chats coming immediately after that.
Because they don't want us to move on to the next segment.
Yeah. So Rachel, friend of the show, Rachel Atwood, said, I'm so glad Lewis Aaron isn't a MAGA-Zionist early 2000s pop rock singer. Anyway, happy Independence Day. Was it all worth it? I'm not fully sure.
Isn't there someone called Aaron Lewis who's a singer? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that? Do you know who that is, Lewis? Because I don't know.
I've Googled him before, but I can't remember anything about him as a musician. That's all I know. That is all I know.
Excellent. Co-ops, great name, by the way, says, so what do you think,
Could be
guys?
Coops.
What do you guys
You've had
think?
a really good suggestion, Curtis.
Well, I've got a lot to say on this, but I'm going
cool.
to keep it brief because obviously, time's getting on. I have a lot to say about this, right? I am sick of left-wing parties and movements with vague names like Arise, Transform, whatever. I don't want these sort of like vague platitudes. And the reason why is because, look, we live in neoliberal Britain, okay? Unfortunately, not everybody is inspired by hope or by some kind of collective idea. Again, collective I don't like. Unfortunately, a lot of people have been conditioned to kind of think of just about their own material conditions or their own family, and that's it, okay? So you need a name which is tangible and it means something, an action word. It's why I praise the name Reform. Reform is a brilliant name because it's like the idea is within that name, and then their taglines are, Britain needs reform. We need to reform this. We need to reform that. So I want to see a name which is literally like an actual meaning within itself. And 2 names spring to mind. One is the Popular Party, because you could literally say, we have the popular will. Majority of people want to tax billionaires. We need to put public services into public ownership. We're going to fucking end poverty because we're the Popular Party. Or another one is alternative. Britain needs an alternative. And I think Zara Sultana kind of laid that out in her thing. She goes, there's 3 parties that are backed by billionaires. We need an alternative to the corporate machine. Again, these aren't fantastic names, by the way. I appreciate that. Again, I'm not a political strategist, but I don't want a name that's kind of like, what does that really mean? Collective,
how about
Arise, Transform.
Fight the Establishment Party. There we go.
But that's it's also a short name which can be sort of abbreviated.
The thing that, one of the reasons Reform works so well is because it's said all the time. There isn't a single debate in Parliament where multiple MPs don't use the word reform.
Yeah.
So
clever.
having something that's snappy to the point, that does what it says on the tin, but also is going to be used, colloquially by people, I think is really important.
It's why I'm really upset that the Workers' Party exists in its current form, because I love that name, the Workers' Party. But unfortunately, it's headed by George Galloway. Now, we have 560 viewers right now, which is very, very high. So there's a lot of people in here who don't regularly watch our stuff. You might love George Galloway. My personal opinion is I really don't like him. I don't like his views on social issues. And also, there's a lot of things I just really don't like. I'm annoyed that he's there, because I'd be like, Workers' Party straight away. But it's kind of taken, you know.
But People's Party.
I'm going to quickly do something that I wasn't planning on doing. I just needed 30 seconds. So yesterday, when the announcement got made, I posted a video and it got a lot of views. But what I wanted to mention is that I've just thought I'd look into the analysis of the data to see who actually watched it, and I think it's actually really interesting. So the video got 500 million views, 92% from the UK. So 450,000 people from the UK watched this video. It's important to lay out the foundation of this data, right? So I've got actually a predominantly male audience. It's about 55%, but this video was watched by 65% females and 35% male.
Love that.
32% 18 to 24-year-olds, 38% 25 to 34-year-olds, and then 35 to 44, 14%, and then anything older was 8%. And I've actually got 16% of my audience is actually 55 plus, and only 8% of them watched and liked the video. And I do find it's really interesting, like how it is actually scaling up in terms of 65% female, because obviously we do know that there is that split on the left now, isn't there, where more men are going towards reform and stuff like that, and more women are staying left. And I find that really interesting.
The women are here to save us all. They are. They're the future. And by the way, for all of you out there, trans women are women. Just saying.
Yes, you're that way.
Okay, let's go through these super chats, because
we
really need to get on to the next segment.
We do need to get on, but I do just want to say I think you guys are sleeping on Party McPartyface. I think that should be if we're gonna vote on stuff, let's have Party McPartyface on the ballot.
I've seen some other ones of super chats. I won't say it, but I've seen some real good suggestions in here.
Yeah, that's one of the super chats. Do you want me to?
Let's see it. Go on, bring that one up.
The Greg's Party.
650 seat majority. Boom.
You'll get the Newcastle vote.
We're gonna nationalise Greg's, and we're gonna win a 650 seat majority.
Nationalise Greg's.
I was going to say, do we get free sausage rolls? But that's probably bribery, isn't it? They probably won't be allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Fuck it. Viva the revolution.
That's a shame. They can discount the sausage rolls.
Call it
yes.
the rich.
So because they're nationalised and they won't need
party membership gets you a discount.
Yes. So Tracy said, I feel optimistic. I haven't felt this in a very long time. Solidarity, comrades. And I actually think that's a really important point, bearing in mind.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for the
really
massive super chat. But yeah,
well.
I love that comment. I think we need more of that as well.
Positivity. Thank you for the super chat. £20 is really generous. But thank you even more for the positivity, because that is a point which I wanted to bring up, which is that Mamdani ran a positive campaign. I'm going to keep going back to him. I'm so sorry. But positivity is so important.
Yeah.
Coming across as people who win, not people who...
But he was soulful, right? It wasn't just positivity. He radiated charisma and fun. And what he did, do you know what? That was a real celebration of New Yorker's campaign, because he went around, spoke to different communities, spoke in different languages. And by the way, like one of the attacks was like, oh, he's using AI to speak a different language. And then he immediately showed like outtakes of him fucking up, right? By the way, he's very good at like bashing attacks away. But like he was going to bodegas, he was eating places. His campaign was like, I'm here to celebrate New York culture, and I'm also going to fix your material conditions. There are things that are fucked about New York, which I'm going to fix, but here are the amazing things about New York. And that was actually like a really vibrant, energetic campaign, which is so funny, because I saw his detractors say, oh, it was a really negative, soulless campaign. Are you dizzy, bruv? That was probably the best campaign I've seen in my entire life. Soz.
I never thought I'd hear you say that one, Curtis.
Rachel said, call the party servant of the people. So original. Honestly, I do think the idea that it should be centered around something. Problem is, you can't call it the proletarian party, because no one can spell proletarian, and nobody can spell bourgeoisie. Like nobody can.
Exactly.
Yes, but that's the end of the super chats. If we do want to move on to the next segment.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for that. That was an hour and a quarter, which I said before the chat. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a Jeremy Corbyn segment, 10, 15 minutes, but sort of got away
It's
from
important.
us.
It's big left-wing political
It's huge news, but obviously we plan this to be the 1 year anniversary, which sort of gets me into the segment. It is the 1 year anniversary of Saint Sir human rights lawyer Keir Starmer. So
Did you know his dad was a toolmaker?
His dad was a toolmaker. It has been 1 year today of a Labour government, the 4th of July, when the general election came round with a stunning, huge majority for the Labour Party. The Conservatives were all but wiped out. I mean, they retained over 100 seats. A lot of people predicted less. I thought that they were going to get more than 100. They got more than 100. And Reform got 5 seats. The Greens got 4. It was a huge victory for the Labour Party, but many of us socialists saw it as a massively hollow victory. The Conservatives lost, seeing people like Jacob Rees-Mogg lose their seats and other terrible
Very
people. Very satisfying. Was amazing to see. But it was bittersweet because we knew that this Labour government was not going to be a Labour government. We are going to do a 1 year review. My first question is, look, none of us here were like, oh my God, I'm so happy there's going to be change. We knew it was going to be a status quo party. The manifesto was abysmal, and the messaging was, despite the word change, it was, we're going to do the same as the Tories, but manage it a little bit better. Having said all of that, are the Labour Party even worse this first year than you expected? Cog, I'll go to you first.
I mean, I've held the position fairly consistently since July 2024 that people didn't know what they were voting for. It was just a big question mark next to Keir Starmer. Could have been good, could have been bad. So my expectations were kind of not really set to anything. I was sort of like, you're voting for a big question mark. Keir Starmer is such a liar that you do not know what you are voting for. Was he worse than I expected? Not really, but was he better? Again, not really. I didn't know how it was going to turn out. My expectations were set extremely low, but I could have told you back then that by this time, everybody would have already got fed up with them, with him fucking lying to them all the time and just hoping that they didn't notice, which is not a great strategy, to say the least. Like, lie to people and hope that they don't notice seems to be like the McSweeney Starmer like 101 campaign. It's just not a great strategy. Like, I am expecting with this like turmoil that they're going to come out with another 5 lies. They'll call them like the 5 goals of 2025 or something like that. And have another reset of the government. But we know their playbook by now. They're going to say one thing and do something completely different. It's how they operate.
Callum, okay, we heard Cog say kind of, about what I expected, had no hopes. I think none of us were expecting much, but were you expecting Palestine action to potentially be prescribed? Were you expecting £5 billion worth of cuts, including PIP, so attack on disabled people? Were you expecting the really, really drive to the right wing on social issues and basically throwing trans people under the bus? Were you expecting, ideology and policy aside, the Labour Party said, and Keir Starmer said, look, we're not really going to change policy, but we're going to be grown-ups. And yet he's taken thousands of pounds worth of clothing from Wahid Ali for Mrs. Starmer, Taylor Swift tickets galore. So
and the massive donation in the election campaign as well.
And the massive donation in the election campaign. Our expectation was at the floor, but did they break the floor with the list I've just given you?
On some of those things, I mean, you mentioned trans rights, for example. That was one of the final straws for me that resulted in me leaving the party. And obviously that was before the election. So I think I knew they were going to be shit on trans rights and throw people under the bus. I don't think... Look, Starmer was a liar from the very beginning, right? I was at the very first hustings for the new leadership of the Labour Party after Jeremy Corbyn had announced that he wasn't going to be in that position any longer. And Starmer stood in a room full of Labour members. I was sat right at the front, and I had submitted a question. Well, me and somebody else had submitted very similar questions about how each candidate was going to unite the party. And he answered that question. Can't remember if it was mine or the other guys, but it was basically the same question. And he stood on a platform to the membership of, praising Jeremy Corbyn, saying how brilliant the 2019 and the 2017 manifesto was, how important it was that, he kept all of those brilliant policies that people liked, and things needed to change, but we also needed to, keep the socialist roots there. He almost put himself out there as a continuity Corbyn candidate. Now, I didn't vote for it. I didn't vote for him. I voted for Rebecca Long Bailey. But once he got into power in the party, it became very clear that obviously he wasn't going to stand by those things. The problem is that for the wider media and for the wider public, unless you follow politics closely, you don't see all that. So when Starmer's running an election campaign the 6 weeks leading up to this time last year, for many people, they're hearing some of these things for the first time. Now, for anyone that was a member of the party or anyone that had been a member of the party, you'd seen from the inside that, we'd make all these promises and then break them all. But to the wider public, they hadn't necessarily seen that. So I think, for me, yes, I think by that this time last year, I think I knew some of those things were coming. I'll be honest, I didn't expect the Labour Party to ever be... I expected austerity again. I didn't expect them to go after people on disability benefits. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect them to go after the winter fuel allowance. And you know what? I don't necessarily agree with the idea that people with more money should pay more. Like, I'm not against that. But making the cutoff point as low as it was just insane. I never expected a Labour Party to have their own impact assessments say that their actions were going to put tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, 250,000 plus people and children into poverty, and have them go, oh, well, we've just got to do it because it balances the books. I didn't expect that from the Labour Party. I expected shit lib policies. I expected more of the status quo. I did expect more austerity. But for me, and I mean, maybe I was naive because I'm sure there's plenty of people, and there might even be people here, between the rest of you who felt like this was all inevitable. But I knew it was going to be difficult. I just didn't think it would be this bad. Looking back, I'm actually not, in hindsight, I don't think I'm surprised. I think the signs were there. But I also think I was blinded, as a lot of people were, by the desire to get the Tories out. And I mean, you'll all remember, this time, well, not quite this time last year, but, 12 hours from now, this time last year, when we were coming to the end of our 12-hour live stream, that we were all very sort of, we were exhausted, but there was a sense of like, oh shit, okay, we've got rid of them, but what's coming now? Like you said earlier, it's quite bittersweet. But yeah, I think riding the wave of thank fuck the Tories have gone, I think maybe cushioned some of the shit that we then saw. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. Lewis, we'll speak about policy and ideology in a second. Are you surprised at how incompetent this Labour Party is and how Keir Starmer is? Because obviously their main pitch, and I said it and I'll say it again, it was like, we're not really going to change much in terms of policy. We're not really going to change the sort of broad sort of swaths of the last 14 years of Conservative economics. But, we're the grown-ups in charge now. And it's been nothing but, again, from the donations to what's happened recently over the welfare bill and the rebellions. Are you surprised at how bad at politics Keir Starmer's Labour Party is?
There's part of me that I definitely was a little bit more naive at the beginning, right? Because, let's just speak about Keir Starmer objectively, right? He ran a department that was worth billions, right? He's got experience in government, so you would expect
he can draft a meeting, he can take a minute, as they said,
Yeah.
Keen eye for detail.
Exactly. He's led a party for a few years at that point. You would expect that he would have some better managerial experience. There's always going to be teething issues. And I think there's been worse iterations of cabinets. We could talk about the series of Tory cabinets that we had for years. And I still feel like Labour do get more scrutiny. But I didn't expect it to be this bad. I didn't expect that they would be, in so many ways, so politically naive. And, I was listening to, who was it the other day? I can't remember who was talking about it, about how there was a situation with Thatcher in the 80s where she had to discipline a minister for saying that we shouldn't actually want a too big of a majority because actually you've got more people to manage. You just want a safe majority, not a huge majority. And I remember a minister apparently got disciplined for that, and it ultimately turned out that that person was right. And it's the same in this situation, is that they've been handed this huge majority. They've not known how to manage it. And it's just become a complete and utter mess. They don't know how to manage their factions. And on top of that, they don't know how to manage their team at Downing Street either. They don't know how to manage the ministers. Obviously, you've got Morgan McSweeney playing games as soon as he comes in, ousting Sue Gray. And obviously, allegedly, but reported on quite well, Louise Hay. And some people have speculated on the idea of even Tulip Sadiq, was that her name?
Yes,
the MP, the Bangladeshi one, that he had some involvement as well in highlighting that because she liked Corbyn as well back in the day. And it's really interesting that it's almost like they've allowed all this chaos to reign in so many different ways and not thought about what the consequences are going to be, because I don't feel like Keir Starmer is a politician in the sense of he knows how to do good politics, because he doesn't. It's the fact that he has allowed all this mess to be created by just being a really terrible leader. People keep saying he is ruthless, and I think he's shown some of that, but he's also just really crap at seeing what's coming ahead of him. And I think that's ultimately going to be his downfall, because he can't see what's the expression, the trees for the forest for the trees, trees for the forest. Oh god, guys, I need more caffeine.
He's like a deer in the headlights. He can't see 6 inches past his nose. I mean, for me, I was let's go all the way back to 2020. In my view, I never trusted Keir Starmer. I thought his Corbyn in a suit was a load of bullshit. And the reason why I believe that, right, and I've been vindicated, is because the Labour Party, over the years, arguably most of its life, is an establishment political party. And Jeremy Corbyn, despite him being in the party for 60 years, was the outsider in, because obviously a lot of people joined the party under Jeremy Corbyn. He was the leader of the party, but Jeremy Corbyn had the top of the party, the membership. He didn't have the middle, which is arguably, in a way, the most important, the machine, right? That was always captured by the Labour right. So having a purely, not purely, but having a really left-wing party is not something that can just happen with any leader. Jeremy Corbyn didn't make the changes that were needed to reform the party to make it democratic. The biggest mistake of Corbynism or the Corbyn project was not mandatory reselection or open selection. We would have a very different Labour Party today if that were the case. So when Keir Starmer came, right, the fact that he was a former human rights lawyer, very much in the establishment, backed by people who have been part of sort of even the centrist, centre-right faction, right? I knew full well that this was the counter-revolution from the establishment Labour Party. So I was a bit like those that voted for Keir Starmer, thinking they believed him because he's this is, the 2017 manifesto is the foundational document. I was like, you are fucking fools. How are you buying this? How are you buying this? But of course, people did do that.
Sorry, Curtis, that was me.
Yeah, well, I mean, the apology, that apology would never be enough. I'm joking.
I just wanted to add, though, my naiveness to quickly make the point is that I am a naive person in some ways, right? I see all these bad things happening, but when you see a sign of something good, you think, is it just part of the game so they can get through, right? I always thought that like Labour were maybe playing, I knew they were obviously nowhere near the left of Jeremy Corbyn, right? I knew they were going to appeal to the centre. I was hoping that they would appeal to all their coalitions. They would appeal to some of the right and some of the centrists and some of the left, as we expect many parties would do. And my naiveness was that, remember when they won the election and then they appointed, is it James Timpson to the prisons? I was like, that's a decent move. And then I remember when we all talked about this, I was like, like Richard Hermo. He spoke up against Palestine. He's a human rights lawyer too, and he's got
Yeah.
a good track record. And I remember feeling like, yeah, maybe they've played a careful game, and maybe they're going to do some things that are going to make us happy and surprise us. And there is some good little things here and there that obviously I agree with, but I get naive because
To be
I
fair,
see these moments of hope,
But-
and
but
then
is-
I get,
I mean, in
and then I get
2020
destroyed.
though, that was kind of my position too. Like, I never trusted him, but I expected him to be like a more, not charismatic, a more sensible looking Ed Miliband. Like, you know, like Ed Miliband is not exactly someone who's very good at public speaking, right? I thought Keir Starmer was going to be like an Ed Miliband figure to appease all factions, right? And on foreign policy, absolutely not follow Jeremy Corbyn. I knew that. I mean, you wouldn't do that. But domestic policy, I thought a lot of that might be sprinkled in there. But that was probably for about 6 months. Then we saw some of the things that Keir Starmer was doing. And by 2021, midway through 2021, I was like, he's no different to the Conservatives. But I actually do believe that since the election, Keir Starmer and the Labour Party have been even worse than I expected. I didn't expect certain things to happen under the Labour Party. I didn't expect them. I never saw them as, allies to the queer community, for example. But I thought it was going to be like a broadly liberal party. I thought it was going to be like a socially liberal, or at least virtue signal on social issues, and an economically neoliberal party, because I think that's where Keir Starmer probably fits. So when we've got Wes Streeting saying, I regret saying that trans men are men and trans women are women, that definitely shocked me.
Yeah, I am
and
sorry,
many other
Lewis.
things.
I am gagging to go because I want to ask Curtis a question, and I'll put it to all of you. How much of that do you attribute to Starmer himself, and how much of that do you attribute to Morgan McSweeney? Because there is still, I mean, this is going to be my shit take for the night, so buckle down. But there is still a part of me that wonders whether Starmer is a little bit more left wing than we think he is, but he's got Morgan McSweeney in his ear, because some of the there's too much. You know, if people like Cog could listen to Starmer and think, you know what, I actually believe him, I'm going to vote for him. Like Cog's, you know, he's an intelligent bloke. Cog. I know you're there right below me, but do you know what I mean? Like, you're an intelligent. You're not
Broken
you know,
clock is no
I-
wait.
through-
Broken
yeah.
clock is
Broken
right.
clock,
No, because
yeah.
that makes you sound bad. What's
But-
something that usually is good but fucked up twice?
But
the opposite of broken clock.
Is that because actually, is the reason that Starmer metaphorically spoke to so many within the Labour Party, was some of that because he was actually genuine with the things that he was saying, but then he's had Morgan McSweeney advising him. I mean, for example, there was a rumour that came out recently, some more gossip from Westminster, that Starmer is really, really keen to scrap the 2-child benefit cap, and that Morgan McSweeney is the one that is preventing him from doing it. And if that is the case, you know, and I'm not making a defence for Starmer at all, but I just wonder what you think as to, you know, how much of it is Starmer himself and how much of it is the people that he's surrounded himself with.
It's so Keir Starmer is an empty vacuum. So he doesn't have any principles himself. He's quite clueless. But there clearly was a time when Keir Starmer was vaguely left wing, like he was making speeches or making pro-Palestine speeches, and he was speaking out against Zionism when he was younger.
Defending people 21 years ago who broke into an RAF base, saying it was
actually some of his things he did as a
terrorism.
human rights lawyer, he did some really good things, right? He's definitely like to the left of Morgan McSweeney. But the reason why Keir Starmer was perfect for Morgan McSweeney, because ultimately Keir Starmer became so enthralled within the establishment. He isn't a principled person. And to be honest, his past like good takes probably wasn't out of principle, but because of the people he surrounded himself by. When you're younger, right, a lot of spaces, when you go to university, there's a lot of like-minded people, a lot of young left-wing people. And I think that Keir Starmer was just around like-minded people. It was cool to be left-wing. And that's why he took left-wing positions. And as he got more sort of inside the establishment, the higher he got, he was then surrounded by people who was a bit more right-wing. He's a chameleon. And that's why Morgan McSweeney wanted Keir Starmer, because he could project his own policies onto Keir Starmer. So really, I'm not really interested in whether Keir Starmer could have been more left-wing without Morgan McSweeney or not. At the end of the day, Keir Starmer is actually right-wing. You need to take him on what he's doing right now.
Then, Curtis, does that
and
mean
he's allowed
that,
himself to be so fucking right-wing.
Does that mean that if it becomes cool to be left-wing again, that it'll swing the other way?
I mean, it depends what context. I mean,
Well, I
it's not
mean,
gonna-
if this new party takes off and there's more support for, at the moment they're going more right wing because it seems to be cool to be like Reform.
It's always been cool to be left wing.
Well, I know.
Yeah,
The
true.
right wing are all nonsense. Like, that's the truth of it.
Well, I mean, it's not
Allegedly.
about. I mean, really, it's not about left or right though. It's about establishment and not establishment. You're never gonna have the establishment being left wing, because left wing politics is an antithesis to the establishment, right? It is like we are literally anti-establishment. So it's not necessarily like, oh, when will it be cool that Keir Starmer can be left wing again? The establishment is never going to shift to the left.
To just get rid of it.
This is
it's
the
going to be
definition
like
of
the
liberalism
higher
leads
up he
to
gets to the top, the
fascism.
more right wing he becomes, because that's how the establishment works. Sorry, go on.
This is the perfect example of how liberalism leads to fascism, right? Because these people who are liberals, who might be a bit left wing, when they get faced with these tough situations where they're afraid to be truly left wing, and this is what they do, right? They capitulate to the right, and then they go down that hole, and then they eventually give in to fascism and fascistic ideas. I think what happened today with Palestine Action was authoritarian, not deeply, but it borders into it, right? We had so many groups, lawyers, organizations, the UN disagreeing with it in so many ways, and that's now opened the doors. That's now opened the doors for the government to use that power against other groups in the future. Like, what's her face? Suella Braverman wanted to deem some of the eco groups terrorist organizations, and luckily that never went to court. And that's what they've allowed now. They've opened that pathway, and this is why liberalism leads to fascism. And he's the perfect example of it.
I mean, to be fair, Callum, I think the question you were asking though is like, if the Overton window moved to the left, where would Keir Starmer be? And
yeah, that's the question I was asking.
And I would agree. If the Overton window was more left wing, I do think you would see a more left wing government, because once again, like, Keir Starmer isn't particularly ideological. His only ideology is sucking up to power. And yes, if the Overton window was a bit more left wing, then you could probably see that. But his reluctance to try and stand for something on the left, and his how he's so happy to maneuver to the right so seamlessly, is what makes an establishment politician, right? I think if you stand firm and stand for left-wing sort of principles and policies, that directly makes you anti-establishment. But Keir Starmer is the establishment, that he will just go where sort of the wind takes him. But yeah, I can see, like, all right, if the Overton window was... And it's strange though, because the Overton window is so far removed from what people's opinions actually are. The Overton window, in terms of the mainstream media, is we need to be pro-Israel, we need to clamp down on benefits, the 2-child benefit cap's a good thing, right? But actually, when you poll people and speak to people, no one wants a 2-child benefit cap, no one wants disability cuts, and no, people don't like Israel. So of course, that's obviously something to factor in. But once again, the Overton window can shift because political leaders allow it to happen. Keir Starmer could be someone who could make sure the Overton window doesn't move to the right by standing firm on leftist policies. But to sort of finish up on what you were saying, do I think if the Overton window was slightly to the left, Starmer would be willing to do it? Sure. However, there's a difference between saying you're going to do something and do policy. Like, it would be like, oh, okay, the Overton window is we need to put loads of money into the NHS, right? And Keir Starmer says, I'm going to put loads of money into the NHS. But what would he do is he's going to use loads of private money, not state spending, for example. So that's one where you can sort of virtue signal and say, I'm doing really popular things because people want more money in the NHS. But what's the establishment way of thinking? It's not using taxes to do it, to fund it. It's basically saying, I'm going to use private corporations and use PFI, and we're going to pay them back.
A worry of mine, actually, over the past year has been people think that Keir Starmer represents the left, right?
Yeah.
That is a concern to me, because if people have voted for an alternative on the left, and they think, oh, well, I voted for Keir Starmer, he's a radical leftist, he's nearly a socialist, he'll do. And then Keir Starmer is essentially just the Tories again, David Cameron era Tories. That does present a huge problem for the left with making sure that we are carving out an alternative. And that is one of the reasons that we need to come across as energetic winners who are willing to meme on our opponents, like take the piss out of them 100%. Like, Don't take them too seriously. Be prepared to have a laugh, but we want to come across as confident, energetic winners. That is so important.
But that's also why the right are clamping down heavily on using that language about the Labour government. Reform are constantly saying that Keir Starmer's a communist, and they're doing it deliberately.
100%. You're exactly right. And I was just going to answer your question about McSweeney. I think Morgan McSweeney is a complete idiot. And to borrow a quote from the original Star Wars: A New Hope, who's the more foolish, the fool or the fool who follows him? Right? Is it Starmer or is it McSweeney? It doesn't really matter. They're both fools. They're both moving in the same direction. Morgan McSweeney was recently talking about using AI synthetic polling, as in like you get AI to generate a median voter and tell you what they think, and you poll off of that.
Absolutely insane.
It's insane because you don't understand how a large language model works. Essentially, you might as well be asking predictive text what it thinks the outcome of the election will be. It's predictive text. At the end of the day, that is what a large language model AI is. He's stupid, but he's extremely stupid, but he's got this win because the Tories' vote collapsed, and he's been, high off his own supply ever since, and it's a real problem.
I think Morgan McSweeney is what I'm going to call Ireland's revenge. I think he's a psyop from Sinn Féin, and he's been sent into the UK to destroy the UK, and he's winning. Well done, Ireland. Well done for playing the long game. You deserve your revenge.
I had a couple more general points to make, if you can fit that in at some point.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Or do you want me to just go straight into it?
Go for it.
Okay, cool. Corbyn, if you're listening to this, please, I beg of you, it'd be so funny if you called your new party Yvette Cooper. I'm just saying, right? Because then they have to go on the radio and argue against the direct action group Yvette Cooper, and then against the new party Yvette Cooper.
Do not vote for Yvette Cooper.
Don't vote for Yvette Cooper. Right? That is one of the things that you should potentially just consider. I'm just saying that's the banter timeline. But I also wanted to talk on a slightly more serious note. There was a push by Hitler in the late 1930s and early 40s to draw up plans for Germania. It was going to be his big city, and basically he was a megalomaniac in the most literal sense. He wanted what other countries had, but bigger. Like, he wanted an Arc de Triomphe to be built in Berlin that was going to be the world capital, Germania, and he wanted them but bigger. We know this from the diary of Paul Troost, who was his chief architect. And a lot of the problems that he faced were that you can't build something of that size without the proper foundations to support it. Because, like, if you've ever seen a child try and build a big stack of Lego bricks up, they start to fall over after a bit because you haven't built the foundations that you need, right? And you might have already figured where I'm going with this. But this is the same as building a government. If you're going to build something, it needs to be, and you're going to reach the heights that we need to see as a society, it needs to be built on strong foundations, because the Labour Party over the past year have had some unambiguous wins, right? Private school VAT exemption being lifted, like a tax exemption being lifted. That is an unambiguous positive. Action on violence against women and girls, such as the 999 domestic violence specialists and domestic abuse protection notices being brought in. That is positive. Free breakfast clubs being trialled. It started in April. Unambiguous positive. I'd say the renters' rights bill, pretty unambiguously positive. Undoing a lot of the Tories' damage on workers' rights, unambiguous positive, and strengthening workers' rights, unambiguous positive. Minimum wage increases, unambiguous positive. The big problem is that these are like a tower of Lego bricks that can be so easily knocked over because it doesn't have the popular support of the public. And without that PR, without that popular support, it can be knocked away by the Tories and Reform as soon as they take office. All of this great stuff, all of this good stuff that they're doing can be knocked away because it doesn't have a core foundation of supporters who will come out and protest to defend it, and defend it as a win, not merely as, no, please don't take away our nice shiny stuff, right? That we need, if we want to build good governance, it needs to be built on popular support. The NHS produced results for people in the 1940s and 50s, and ever since, it's been the sacred cow of British politics. Nobody can touch it because they saw results from it. If people see results from it and it becomes a widely used popular sort of movement, policies that are widely supported and popular, good PR, then your campaign will be long lasting. As it is, even the positives here are collapsible, right?
Well, I mean, it's funny you've brought all of that up because I was about to just say, let's look at the positives of this year of Labour government. No, but I want to caveat this. I mean, there was a poll done. I think it's More in Common. And basically, it's one of those
word cloud.
Yeah, it's the word cloud poll. And they were asked, what was Labour's biggest achievement? Obviously, you get all these little words, right? But the biggest one was nothing, which I thought was hilarious. And also, there's something I do want to say about that as well. I don't know, we can't really see it.
Too
You've listed a couple of positive policies from, there you go, nothing, from the Labour Party. Let's speak about that. Let's see where do you think the Labour Party have done right, either on policy or on rhetoric. What do you guys think?
Oh, go on then, I'll dive in. In terms of, obviously, the mission and rhetoric around housing is good, whether they've made enough steps to achieve their goals so far. It's obviously the amount of houses they want to build is ambitious. Obviously, there's speculation that Rayner was given that job and that target to set her up for failure for future leadership. So it could be used against her if she tried to challenge Keir Starmer, but that's a whole other different thing. That's ambitious. Obviously, if we're evaluating the last year, this recently came out just a few weeks ago. I think the Times reported on it, that they are actually considering something which I would consider like radical for where we are right now in terms of workers' rights. But they're currently considering enforcing transparency on pay with employers, meaning you'll be able to find out basically what
that, by the way,
everyone else earns. You will be, if they
really
bring this in, this is that if this goes ahead, this was just the general framework. You will get given clear guidance by your employer on how to essentially earn more money. Like, here is a list of goals. If you achieve them, you will get this pay rise. And also transparency on stuff like ads when it comes to how much you can get paid. So your employee or potential employer can't basically fuck you over. And there was a bunch of more things that was really good. If they continue in that direction, that's really positive. There's some stuff in the workers' rights bill which is great. And obviously, just to throw out there, they kept their promise with putting VAT in private schools. And one of the U-turns that they didn't do is that, which is good. But other than that, like in terms of things that come to mind without doing lots and lots of research, that's all I can really think of. And I can't really put much else to their name even as a person who, consumes politics more than I do anything else.
Callum?
VAT on private schools, renters' rights bill, the breakfast clubs we've talked about. Again, like Lewis, I'm struggling to think of anything else. I think
actually, Callum, I have the thing up right here on full fact of the things that are ticked as achieved. There are 15 of them. Shall I quickly read them out?
Yes.
This is according to full fact. Sorry. So migration, ending the wasteful ending Rwanda. They did that.
Oh yeah, that was good. That was good.
Set out a path of achieving 2.5% on GDP. Every fiscal event making significant changes to taxation or spending will be subject to an independent OBR forecast. We will immediately update the national policy planning framework. They will deliver an extra 2 million NHS operations scans and appointments every year. That is 40,000 more appointments every week. Labour will end the VAT exemption on schools. Labour will conduct a strategic defence review. All this is a lot of it's pretty much a bunch of nothing. Labour will carry out a review of sentencing. That's achieved. Just a review. Almost done. Introduce a football governance bill. Didn't hear a thing about that. We will end the use of offshore trusts to avoid inheritance tax. Apparently that has been achieved. And we will abolish non-dom status once and for all, replacing it with a modern scheme for people who live genuinely in the
have
country.
they U-turned on non-dom? I'm pretty sure they've U-turned
changed
on that.
the way they were
It's because
doing
they haven't officially U-turned yet, so that's why it's still that's why it's still checked.
And so a lot on that list is achievements that they've made, but are bad things too. I do want to say I really did, and again, it's only a small thing because obviously there's not much positives out of this Labour government this year, but I really did like that Rachel Reeves increased capital gains taxes, because when it comes to wealth taxes, and it's kind of a form of wealth tax, not a proper wealth tax, right? But I'm really passionate about this, and the reason why I'm passionate about it is not just about taxing the rich, but taxing the wealth, because obviously we can increase income taxes. I'm not opposed to increasing income taxes on the wealthiest, right? But I'm not that interested in it, because to be the top 5% in this country, you need to earn more than 80 grand a year. Now, to be honest, that doesn't actually sound like that much money. For us, fucking party time if we are earning that. But in the broad scheme of things, when you've got multi-millionaires and billionaires, 80k a year that puts in the top 5% is kind of crazy to me. It just kind of shows how poor Britain really is. So I'm not that interested in raising taxes on what you'd say the lower middle classes, but the multi-millionaires and the billionaires and the fucking assets. So increasing capital gains tax was a win for me. It wasn't much, but I think it basically signals that we should start taxing unearned welcome. It's not equalised, but at least it was Rachel Reeves willing to tax unearned income and income that is not coming from social utility. I do think that was good. Ending the tax break. Remember, we've got to say, when it comes to VAT and private schools, it is not a tax rise. It is an end to a tax break. Good policy. All the people, and I've said this before, I support their right to strike because I actually support freedom because I'm a leftist, not a right-winger. Farmers going on strike, but they all lost their minds over an end to a tax break, and it wasn't fully ended. So, for example, the taxes were 40%, supposedly 40%. Farmers got 0% on it. Then Rachel Reeves basically said, look, you're paying 20% taxes. So they didn't increase taxes. They ended the tax break, but they didn't even do it fully. They still got 50% reduction, and obviously they're crying about it. But I think that's a good thing because there's some farmland owners, not workers. Although the media wants to make you think it's all the same thing, and Jeremy Clarkson going on strike saying, oh, look, we're all together. He's a fucking liar. I mean, Jeremy Clarkson literally admitted he bought land to avoid taxes. He's a scumbag. He can go fuck himself. He has nothing in common with farmland workers. These are good things. They don't go far enough, of course, but they're good things. I also agree when it comes to violence against women. There was a campaign, it started like a year ago, from Egalitarian called Justice in Spiking Out, I think it's called that. And basically, it was to make spiking a criminal offence. And not a lot of people know this, and I didn't know this either. I thought that if you spike someone, that's a criminal offence. It's not his own offence. So this campaign group were campaigning on that, and the Labour government is making that policy. So spiking drinks is to become its own criminal offence. Fantastic policy. Of course, a lot of these policies are things that don't really cost any money. So I guess it's a very liberal policy, as in, like, you don't need to tax the rich to do it. You don't need to hurt your donors, but it's still positive nonetheless. To pick up on what Lewis was saying about, like, that list you spoke about, a lot of it was reviews. And my summary, I guess because, we could probably get to comments soon. My summary of this first year Labour government is Quango. So a lot of it is saying really nice things, but all it is kicking the can down the road. One of them that sort of screams out to me is the Child Action Poverty Force, something like that. It's not the exact wording. And basically, this was during the time when it got really heated with the 2-child benefit cap, right? Poverty organisations, human rights organisations, everyone on the left were like, why is there a 2-child benefit cap? Just fucking scrap it, right? Even Reform say they're going to scrap it. They probably won't though. And the Labour Party were like, right, we're going to scrap it. Instead, they are spending money on review. So in 2 years' time, they're going to come back and say, we've done a review on how to reduce child poverty, and it's scrapping the 2-child benefit cap. A lot of the government has been words and not actions, or reviews or quangos. Oh, we're going to do a review and we're going to come back in 2 years' time. I was like, that is not action. That is not doing things in government. That's having an essay to write and you've got 2,000 words to write, and basically you write 50 unique words and you just start rewriting the same thing with slightly different words, like filling it out and waffling. That is exactly what it is. So my overall summary of this first year Labour government is fucking Quango Central.
I think that's a fair summary.
Good summary. Yeah. I blanked. I was going to say something, but I've completely blanked.
We'll go to... Go on, Callum. Have you got it back?
I would say we could quickly mention, obviously, 2 good things that happened recently, but obviously came from backbenchers, obviously, is the decriminalisation of abortion and also assisted dying. Not half backed by the government and half not, because some ministers didn't want it, some ministers did.
I mean, I think some of us might disagree on that, though, on that particular policy. Well, I think there's a disagreement on there, and I don't like... I mean, I principally support assisted dying. don't support the bill, especially with Kim Leadbeater, who's fronted this bill, voted in favour of cuts to welfare. So I think there's a broad consensus on the principle of assisted dying. There is not a consensus of the implementation under neoliberal Britain. I think it scares me too much that it becomes euthanasia for poor and disabled people like we see in Canada. I don't think it'd be as extreme, by the way, but I don't see enough safeguards. So when you say it's a positive, I don't know what you mean by that. I just want to personally say though that I love the principle, but I don't like the policy.
For me, it's a positive. I'm generally in favour, but that's a whole other debate. We already had it anyway.
Yeah,
but
fair
for
enough.
me, it's a positive. But anyway, it wasn't the Labour government. It was just Labour backbenchers who achieved those things.
But it happened under a Labour government.
Well, it is. Yeah, definitely. No, I didn't have anything else to add. Actually, I think everything that I was going to say has been covered. Let's see what the next 3 years bring.
Yeah. Like BBC Sherlock was one of the worst like renditions of Sherlock that I've seen. Right, there's been so many better like iterations of Sherlock Holmes that you could watch. However, there was one line that I'm thinking of right now. It was like, "Wow, Sherlock, you're Sherlock Holmes, right? You're much shorter than you look on the telly." And he says something along the lines of, "Yeah, I invest in a good coat and a short friend." And I think this also applies to Keir Starmer's Labour government, right? Not questioning Keir Starmer's height. You guys all know that I'm in no position to question anyone's height,
I still
being
think
as short as I am.
Starmer's the exception. You can take the piss.
So, but the point I'm trying to drive at there is a lot of the things that Labour have done that are good are only good in comparison to their short friend, the Conservatives, right? And no offence to Rishi Sunak. But the fact is that a lot of these things are only good in comparison to the government that came before them. For example, they get a lot of praise for resolving the strikes. I think that's not an unambiguous positive to me, because they've got this thing going on with the Birmingham bin workers, but also they've got a really bad relationship with the unions right now. And also that's a mega low bar to clear, not having an ongoing industrial dispute that's been going on for years and years and years and could be solved very easily. But the Tories don't want to solve it because it's an ideological principle for them. That's relatively easy to solve. It's a low bar to clear. Restoring NHS funding to 2010 levels. They've done it, but it's still underfunded and the staff are massively underpaid. There's questions about the private sector lobbying Wes Streeting for their involvement and about this new 10-year plan. Dr. Julia Grace Patterson is somebody who's great on that. Give her a follow and check out her campaigns. Great British Energy. It's better than what the Tories had come up with, but it's just an investment company to siphon public money to profits.
It's neoliberal, if you ask me.
And also only restricting new oil and gas licenses instead of going, no, this is a climate emergency. All oil and gas licenses in the North Sea should go as soon as possible. Drilling should just stop. Water companies, taking some action on the water companies is better than no action on the water companies, like under the Tories. But Richard Murphy's been heavily critical of the way that Labour have done this, because effectively they've just been guaranteeing that the water companies can carry on as they are. At Great British Rail, they've taken the most kind of long and bureaucratic approach to it, to nationalisation. Nationalisation is really popular. If you want the benefits from that, you need to just nationalise it now, because you're not going to see the benefits in time for it to save you at the next election, because people won't remember this shit. People will not remember this shit. And also, if you're only good in comparison to the Tories, you're not good. Yeah.
And also, to be fair, though, you say compared to the Tories is a low bar. A lot of the time, they're inseparable from the Conservatives.
True.
So, it's 9:30. I do want to go through some comments and we can sort of round it off. We also want to play a video from Callum. He did some Vox Pops asking the question, what do you think of Keir Starmer's first year?
It's only 2 minutes long.
It's only 2 minutes long. Before we do those two things, though, there's one thing we absolutely need to speak about. We've spoken about social issues. We've spoken about the economy. 1 year Labour government and what they've done in terms of complicity in a genocide. We have to speak about this. I appreciate it's 9:30, so we can't speak about this at length. But it would be very, very wrong of me to not speak up about an ongoing genocide, which this government is not just complicit in, but it's done things I think has exacerbated it. Definitely going to come to Lewis first on this one. He's our de facto sort of foreign correspondent. Lewis, you need to give me your review of Labour's foreign policy specifically. I mean, well, you can widen that if you want, but like particularly on Gaza.
Yeah, so just remember, guys, in exactly 2.5 hours, it will be illegal, and you could go to jail for up to 14 years for supporting Palestine action. The order technically, according to the Guardian article that I read earlier, technically it doesn't come into effect for another 2.5 hours. So do with that what you will. But again, I'm just reporting what it said in the newspaper, just in case maybe they were wrong, and it's already in effect. Just saying. Yeah. So in terms of their complicity, so it is a weird up and down thing. So, okay, I'll start from the top. Obviously, they released the injunction essentially that the Tories put on the ICC and let that go. The government in the US did lobby the UK to keep it on, but they didn't. That's a positive. However, that's pretty much the only positive thing that they did in all of this. They obviously suspended arms sales, but they didn't really suspend arms sales. Those arms sales are still getting to Israel because they can't, essentially, this is their argument, stop them going into the open market and then making their way to Israel, essentially. And that was what they basically argued in the court ruling that obviously came out a few days ago. The problem that we have is obviously they admitted on record in that court session that they know that Israel does not intend to apply humanitarian law and actively are seeking to break it. And they still are happy to sell them the parts of the F-35 jets used in crimes against humanity because it would affect the worldwide market of F-35 parts. And they admitted that in court. Obviously, on top of that, we have the base in Cyprus, which the Labour government have still authorised intelligence flights to take off from and surveil Gaza, which we don't know exactly what information they pass on to Israel from those surveillance flights. But what we do know is that when 3 British aid workers for the World Food Kitchen were in Gaza, who are also, I believe, all 3 of them, but please don't quote me on that, were all former veterans in the UK, when they were killed by Israel in an airstrike that they said that was an accident. The British government was actually surveilling Gaza at that moment in that day. So for all we know, the British government actually has information on the deaths of those people that it is withholding from us because the family tried to take the government to court and was unfortunately unsuccessful. So it does appear that they are aware of things on the ground, and they have information on the death of 3 British people. On top of that, the UK government said that they were ending their trade negotiations for the new trade deal that they were going to implement with Israel, which means nothing because we already have a trade agreement with Israel and they're not doing anything with it. They were going to sanction Israeli ministers earlier, but they waited until Trump got elected and they decided not to do that. And sanctioning Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir essentially does nothing. It changes nothing. We need full sanctions on the government, economic sanctions, trade cuts, everything needs to be thrown against them. And then on top of that, we had people like David Lammy secretly meeting with Israeli ministers in London because he knew if those meetings were public that people would protest against them. And of course, on top of that, they still defend everything that Israel is essentially doing while throwing a sprinkling of sugar of condemnation on it. I think that might be most of it, but that's pretty much their complicity as a small summary in this.
Callum and Cog then. We know that when it comes to arms sales, David Lammy actually increased them. I think they sold more weapons to Israel in a few months than, 3 years in the Conservative government? So my question is to both of you is, one, did you expect the Labour Party to be so bad in terms of Israel, or did you expect them to be the same as the Conservatives? And I suppose off the back of that, in some ways, they've been far worse than the Conservatives. Did you expect that too? You're on mute.
Callum, you're on mute.
Sorry, I'm saying from a human rights lawyer, no, didn't particularly expect it. Although from the likes of David Lammy, it was probably to be expected. I don't really have anything to say that's not already been said. we've got to ask why they're doing it. And I think the reason that they've been so bad, and I know I'm kind of giving a politician's answer by not actually answering the question that you've asked me, but I think the reason that they've been so bad is because they spent so much time in order to get Corbyn out of the party, making any form of criticism of Israel, the IDF, and Netanyahu's government and what they were doing so much of a terrible thing, to the point where anybody that dares call out a war crime committed by Netanyahu or the IDF immediately got smeared with claims of anti-Semitism, that now they are in power, they have to stick to that rhetoric, because if they now start saying, "Oh, I know, actually, it is a bit bad, isn't it, killing innocent people?" And actually, it's not. It doesn't make you anti-Semitic to say that, to say that the IDF are committing war crimes. It just means that you're being truthful. Then they have to admit that they were either wrong when they claimed otherwise under Corbyn, or even worse, which is the truth, that they were deliberately using it to try and smear and get rid of the previous leader, despite the fact that innocent people were being killed.
Cog, same question to you.
I'm so sorry. I forgot to add one more tiny thing. I actually think it's probably one of the most important ones. At the end of March, Labour MP John Pearce, who is the head of the Labour Friends of Israel, travelled to Israel and wrote an op-ed in the Jerusalem Post stating that the Labour Friends of Israel are against the ICC arrest warrants and that the government shouldn't have stopped them going ahead. And also they are against the arms sales restrictions. And he bragged about how much the government in the UK was cracking down on anti-Israel protest. And that is the head of the Labour Friends of Israel, which most of the cabinet, including Keir Starmer, is a member of. So who is he speaking on behalf of?
I mean, that is hardcore Zionism. It's not even like where the Labour Party are like, "Oh no, we care about human rights and stuff." That is, he could be right for the Jewish Chronicle. Honestly, he could sound like someone in the Israeli government. So that is hardcore Zionism.
I tried my best. I tried my best to get that into mainstream media. I contacted everyone that I could, and nicely, but not enough. Unfortunately, the only outlet to publish it was the Canary.
Turn left, independent media, though.
I know, but
Fuck
it's
the
important.
mainstream
It's
media.
important to get
I
stories like
understand.
this out there. But yeah, only the Canary published this when I notified them of the story.
Canary, by the way, friends of the former employees, friend of the show, by the way. Go read their material, because obviously they're article based. Cog, want to get your fairly brief answer, should I say?
Yeah, George H.W. Bush, after the fall of the Soviet Union, was able to weaponize against Likud specifically, and more specifically against settlements in the West Bank, by withholding $10 billion of loan guarantees that were supposed to be to support Jewish people who were fleeing the collapsing Soviet Union. And George H.W. Bush essentially said, if you don't get round the table with the Palestinians and start making deals with people like Yasser Arafat, then we are going to take away your loan guarantees. And the Israelis said, "Oh, fine, we'll get in line. We will go, and we'll start." And that was how the Oslo Accords came about. That was the start of the Oslo 1 and 2. Essentially, it came from pressure from the US government, and the Zionist lobby hated him for it, but he was stronger on Israel than Joe Biden was. Joe Biden was pathetic on Israel, and Keir Starmer's been pathetic on Israel. Why is that? It's because these people don't believe anything, so they kind of just go with the status quo, and the status quo, it follows the center of colonial power. Like, that is where the status quo is going to lead you, and it's a golden opportunity with Palestine for any leader who's actually willing to stand up to Donald Trump, because one, it would make you extremely popular with the rest of the world, because no one fucking likes Trump. Nobody is like, yeah, I'm inviting him to this for a state visit because I'm really keen on him. Like, nobody believes that. Nobody does. And so position yourself against Trump immediately, positive with the rest of the country and with the rest of the world. But also there's the taco factor, right? The Trump always chickens out. Trump is a bully at heart. Netanyahu is a bully at heart. The bully only respects force. If you stand up to Trump, he will back the fuck down. And this is true of the trade deficit thing. I'm sorry, trade deficit. This is true of the tariffs thing. It's also true of when you're dealing with questions of the Middle East. If people stand up to him and are strong, he will back down because he doesn't have the balls to like actually go for the fight. He's got the language of the fight, but he hasn't got the fight in him because he wants to be seen as the deal maker. So if you position yourself as a position of strength fighting against him and then come to a deal that's a genuine deal because he's backed down, right? Don't negotiate when you're on the back foot. Always be driving forward when you're dealing with Trump. Always be attacking him. Always be mocking him. Like Keir Starmer could have been, and any leader around the world right now could be leading this. But they aren't because they think the best way to try to deal with Trump is to negotiate with him. It's not. You throw the first punch and then ask, do you want some more of that or do you want to make a deal, right?
What makes me really sad about all this is that despite all of Netanyahu's crimes, it did seem like he was going to face justice through the Israeli justice system for his other crimes of corruption and bribery. And he tried everything within his power to stop that. And he's been trying it for years and it was still going ahead. The courts were pushing him through it. And now he's come up with some sort of deal in the background. We don't know what it is, but there is a 100% quid pro quo going on between Netanyahu and Trump right now, where Trump is trying to pressure the Israeli government and pressure the courts, pressure the rest of the Israeli government and elected politicians to end Netanyahu's trial. I don't know if many people have been following this story, but that has what's been happening for the last week now. Trump keeps posting on True Social about this. It's a witch hunt against him. It should end because Netanyahu has kept this war going so he can keep himself out of prison. And now he thinks his last hope, I guess, is getting Trump to apply as much pressure on Israel as he can to somehow stop his bribery and corruption trial. And it was announced a couple of hours ago for his other investigation that he's been currently investigated for. It involved a US citizen who Trump previously pardoned, and now the US is no longer going to help Israel investigate that person, which would have been key to potentially arresting Netanyahu again on other crimes. So they're helping each other, and it's frustrating.
Right, so I'm going to quickly say a piece, then we're going to go to a video, then your comments. We're going to try and do that in a very short space of time because it's 20 to 10, it's quite late. For me, I am not surprised whatsoever on the Labour Party stance on Israel. I think when it comes to domestic policy, this is the way I see sort of American politics too. You do see a slight difference in domestic policy between like the GOP and Democrats, right? I actually think there's a far bigger divide between the Democrats and the GOP on domestic policy than it is with Labour and the Tories, right? But one thing is truly uniparty is foreign policy, especially Israel, right? You don't just have Labour friends of the Conservative Party, you've got Labour friends of Israel, and they're very powerful. So much so that Lisa Nandy, she was formerly the head of Labour Friends of Palestine, and what was she doing? As that role, she was deliberately trying to undermine it, right? So you had no real voice of Palestinians and Palestinian solidarity inside the Labour Party. Labour on foreign policy have always been establishment, by the way, even through the good years of like Clement Attlee. So I'm absolutely not surprised that they've done this. I'm actually also not surprised when it comes to Palestine Action, right? One might think, I know the Labour Party are bad, but to prescribe Palestine Action as terrorists, I didn't think they'd go that far, and maybe the Conservatives would. I actually think not only Labour are the same, like if the Conservatives were in government, not only do I think they wouldn't be as bad as the Labour Party, right? I don't think the Conservatives would have prescribed Palestine Action. Why do I say that? I say that because the Labour Party are so hell-bent on being the grown-ups in the room. They're so wedded to that idea, and one of the ways they think they can do that is by being authoritarian. Keir Starmer is an authoritarian at heart, by the way, and I think prescribing Palestine Action was a signal to the people, because I don't think any of them actually really, well, most of them don't actually believe Palestine Action is a threat or a terrorist or terrorists. They've done it to make them look like grown-ups and to look strong, right? The Labour right have been far more concerned about their image than the Conservatives, which is why actually on some issues like Israel, like clamping down on freedom, Labour, I expect them to be worse, and they have. To sum it up, Labour, Keir Starmer, the top team, they are genocide supporting monsters, disgusting people. They should never, ever, ever be able to sleep at night. I will never vote for the Labour Party, even if there's a half decent leader, because I would never ever put myself with that disgusting name Labour ever again. Not just the left rejecting Labour, everyone should Labour, and I really, really, really look forward to their demise and destruction. On that note, we've got a 2-minute video clip of Callum speaking to residents, I believe, in Preston. Is that right?
Yeah, they were all the cards on the table. They were actually part of an organised protest as well against the cuts to the disability welfare. It was DPAC, yeah. So I interviewed them about that, but while I was there, I just asked them to sort of summarise their thoughts on the last 12 months of a Labour government.
Cool. We're going to show you that now.
I think Labour are in a bad place. Starmer's in a bad place. I think he's an authoritarian, the way in which he turns around and attacks those who are protesting against genocide. He's an authoritarian, he's nasty, he's vicious, he wants to attack the poor and attack those in benefits while cuddling up to Trump, cuddling up to the rich and making sure that they benefit at our expense.
As someone who campaigned for this Labour government, who it is still a member of the party, it is really, really scary because we are seeing more of the same, just in red.
It's completely what I thought it would be. As soon as he got in as Labour leader back in 2021, I left the Labour Party knowing that this is exactly what we would have.
I was really optimistic, but I had doubts in the general election. And I know a lot of people put their faith in the Labour Party that they grew up with. A lot of the baby boomers born after the Second World War, they lived in a society with all the benefits that they're trying to take away from us now. And I don't think enough people realise that nothing is won without a fight.
The Labour Party have just got nastier and nastier and nastier. They're not the Labour Party anymore. They've been hijacked. It's time to get rid. Then just get rid of them, and we need a new party.
They might never be elected again at this rate. But the thing that worries me the most is who will replace them in 4 years' time.
We are the party of the trade union movement, we are the party of the workers, and we will bring it back to that point, no matter how long it takes, because Keir Starmer isn't inevitable, and that's what helps me sleep at night.
Well, I think we're all absolutely delighted to get the sort of squalid Tory government out of office, and that was definitely a step forward, but a step forward onto the next stage of struggle. And the things that Starmer and his government have done since, just appalling.
Well, I think it was always the case that they had a huge stonking majority, but that was actually a majority built in sand because Labour's vote didn't go up. Starmer actually got less votes than Corbyn did in both 2017 and 2019. They got a stonking majority because the Tories' vote absolutely collapsed.
Really well done there, Callum. I love your vox pops.
Thanks.
I mean, I think they sort of echoed what we all kind of believe. But I think it's 10 to 10. We're probably 20 minutes over, so I think let's just go through some comments and go quite quickly. My partner, who I know was watching, by the way. I mean, she commented earlier, and I can actually hear myself upstairs. I think she's watching in the background while she packs because we're actually going on holiday tomorrow. I'm in big trubs because it's 10 to 10. So let's go through some comments. I've starred some, but if you guys want to pick and choose the order, whatever, you know. That was an invite for one of you to do that, by the way.
Was it? Okay.
Sorry, I thought Lewis was looking through them. Are you picking? Sorry, Lewis.
I mean, like I've starred some.
Right. Well, we've got this one. Then we've got Lana Pierce. Then we've got. I was not expecting fascism, such a despicable attack on the trans community and race riots. I mean, I don't think any of us were really.
I am still, as much as a spittle little cunt Wes Streeting is, and I wish he should shut up, Wesley. I am actually surprised he went as far to say, I regret saying that trans women are women and trans men are men. I thought, and I think this is uniquely with Wes Streeting, which I don't think is the case with some people in the party who are like transphobic on a scale, but not like so transphobic that they would like have a hill to die on to be transphobic. Right? I don't think everyone in Labour is like that. I think Wes Streeting is, though, because let's be honest, he has a very religious background, and I think that informs a lot of his views on trans people. So I think he's like uniquely transphobic. But I was quite surprised that he came out and said that. And he said it on the fucking Sun.
He's probably gonna come out as straight next week.
It will start supporting fucking conversion therapy.
On Starmer, Autumn said, I thought he would be a tepid militant centrist. Turns out he was a far right freak.
Cal, did you clarify where you filmed those Vox Pops? Because Rachel asked.
Oh yeah, they were in Preston. It was a DPAC protest that took place in Preston. Newry said, we're acting like they were popular to begin with. They got fewer votes than in 2019, which I think is worth remembering.
Less than Jeremy Corbyn in 2017 and 2019.
Yeah. Jim, who earlier said that I was fast becoming a Northern Michael Walker, has said, Turn Left need to watch a 5-minute video about how to set up a Discord.
Yeah.
And
we should. No, we honestly should, by the way.
Autumn loves my...
But I don't want to do it. I want someone else to do it.
But yeah, were there any others that anyone saw that they wanted to?
Yeah, I starred this one for just ego. Thank you. And I did like this one though.
Oh yeah.
Look, I'm very proud what we've achieved in this year. And I tell you what, I haven't done it for 2 hours. I'm gonna fucking quit do it now, right? I'm gonna plug, okay? And I know everyone's been generous in the chat, by the way, but I still got to say it. If you want to support independent media, because we're all volunteers, by the way, then you can support us by going to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There is a link to our Patreon where you can support us monthly for as little as £3 per month. Or you can go to the other link which enables you to give us a one-time donation. Alternatively, you can use the super chats and become a YouTube member for just 99p. Bar any financial responsibilities, just keep talking about us, keep sharing our content, and keep turning up to the lives. I mean, tonight's been extremely successful. We had a peak of like 190 viewers on YouTube, 475 on Twitter. Still going strong, by the way. It's 2.5 hours and still got 120 people watching. This is fantastic.
Because nobody can afford to go out.
But on that point, can I just take the opportunity to not only say thank you. To not only say thank you to you guys, but also to say a massive thank you to our community, because 12 months ago to the day, we were in Lewis's front room, taking on probably the biggest, most ambitious project that we had ever dreamt of. Let's do a 12-hour live stream, cover the election night. We'll have guests on, we'll have graphics, and it was quite an operation that we put together that night. And actually, if I may toot our horn for a little bit, the 12 months that's followed and the incredible opportunities that we've had since then, and the incredible opportunities that we've been able to bring to our viewers and to our community has just been completely insane. So we couldn't do it without the support that we get from everyone watching at home, and we're really grateful for the support that you give. There we go.
There's Curtis crashing out on my sofa after streaming for 13 hours. Don't worry, you've got your clothes on.
Did I have blonde hair back then?
I think you did.
That's when you had blonde hair, yeah.
I don't remember having blonde hair on the live show.
You did, yeah.
I did remember that. Wow. Yeah, do you know what? That election night was incredible. And I'm glad that Callum pushed the envelope, because he was like, let's do it. And we're like, yeah, let's do it. But you were really enthusiastic. And then he was like, let's do 12 hours. I'm like, what, 9 till 9? More than the BBC, more than Navarra, more than like Channel 4. I'm like, fucking hell, we're a shoestring budget. Or actually, we had no money at the time. I mean, we've got any money now. It was in Lewis's front room, which is a beautiful front room, by the way. And it was amazing. I loved every fucking second of it. Fantastic stuff.
And we've loved every second since, Curtis.
Yeah, and did you what, though? What we achieved that a year ago, imagine the next election. We're going to have a studio, by the way. That will be happening by that point. We're going to have in-person guests from very prominent people. But do you know what? And it's easy to say this, but like, no matter how big we get, I want to echo what you're saying, Callum. Like, everyone in the chat now in our community is so fucking good. Yeah. Especially when you go on Twitter and you're like seeing shit like remigration, deport them, deport that person. And you're like, fuck, it's such a slot. And then you've got good people in our chat who are just like, it's good to hear like-minded people too.
I just like the regulars. It almost feels like, when you go to the pub and you just see everyone that you know, and it's kind of like You know, I almost like talk about the people in the chat as if like I'm almost like sat in the room with them. And I like sometimes we'll be talking in like our group chat, and you'll be like, "Oh, somebody said this comment the other day," and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, it was Rachel." Like, "Oh,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
this person." It's kind of
We
like
talk. By the way,
it's-
viewers, we talk about you in our group
we
chats.
we talk about you.
Do with that what you will. Any final words?
We've just literally just had this super chat come through. One of my songs needs to be your theme tune.
Yes. By the way, if you go to Andrew's
Thanks, Andrew.
YouTube, check it out there 'cause he's got some really good music, and like very professionally shot videos as well. I liked it a lot, so please go check that out. Okay, is there another one? Are you going to let us go home? Oh, so that gone. It's so fucking good.
It's not just good. It's
That is a
That's
dad
so good.
joke, isn't it? But we like it anyway.
Rachel,
thank you for that
it's boiling in here. Please let me go. It's so hot in this room.
Cog was like in the private chat. I was like, it's really fucking hot.
Well, what is it we have to say? Support independent media. That's there.
if you give
Well,
more,
we've
I'll
got
take
someone to do that for us.
If they
Okay.
give more, he'll take his top off.
Thank you, Callum, Lewis, and Cog. Obviously, Sarah's not here. She has been watching though, and I don't know if she's still watching now, but she was watching. She's been very busy this last couple of weeks.
She'll
so
be back.
She will be back. And I tell you what, the longer she is, the better it is when she comes back. Although I don't want her to be too long, but you know, she's got stuff to do. She will be back very, very soon. As I said, I'm on holiday, so I won't be with you for a week. That's okay.
Yes, I mean, oh, what a shame.
I'm sure you guys will cope, right?
We'll see.
Don't be
We'll
flying-
ask
don't be
the
flying over any
audience that in a week.
Yeah, and don't fly over any active war zones.
Yes.
Yeah, try not to. And yeah, sorry, I've clicked.
Been a few of them recently.
Thanks for a great show. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you, panelists. I want to quickly round this off. Thank you to everyone who tuned in tonight. I mean, we've got 611 people concurrently watching. Loads of people on Twitter, loads of people on YouTube. You've been amazing with your super chats. Really appreciate that. That money means a lot. Again, none of us are paid for this stuff. We won't be paid for a long time, by the way, but we actually care about the stuff we do. And already we can start doing more interviews and covering rallies and protests, and one day having a studio, which would be amazing. This has been a 2.5 hour stream. Thank you for tuning into Normal Island Special. Really appreciate it. Again, I'm not here next week, but we will be returning to our normal show on Monday. But that is it from all of us, and that is it from me. I've been Curtis Daly. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.